Chapter 3066. This battle was different from the battle against the Monkey Kings on the path to heaven. At that time, Su Zimo had just stepped into the Grotto Heaven realm. He was still unsure of how powerful the 5 small Grotto Heavens were. Therefore, when he released them one by one, he wanted to feel the power of each small paradise and see how much improvement they could bring him. But today was different. Su Zimo didn't need to feel anything anymore, nor did he need to hold back. Only by using thunderous methods could he turn the situation around. Therefore, Su Zimo released 5 Grotto Heavens the moment he attacked, causing the starry sky to tremble and heaven and earth to shake. Many living beings cried out at the same time with shocked expressions. Not to mention the kings present, even the imperial emperors would feel their scalps go numb and gasp when they saw this scene. The Corpse God King and the 3 Peak Corpse Kings were also shocked. Don't panic. The Corpse God King was the first to react. He shouted, "It's only 5 small Grotto Heavens. No matter how strong they can't match your perfected stage." Boom! The 3 perfected Grotto Heavens collided with the 5 small Grotto Heavens, resulting in a deafening explosion. The Corpse God King's voice was once again drowned out by the explosion. Each of the 5 small Grotto Heavens had a forbidden mystic manual as its foundation. Facing 3 perfected Grotto Heavens, Su Zimo still had the upper hand with his 5 small Grotto Heavens. However, it was not easy to completely suppress the 3 perfected Grotto Heavens in a short period of time. If he delayed for a moment, the surrounding Grotto Heavenly Kings would react and swarm forward. There was no need for 5,000 Grotto Heavenly Kings. Any 500 Grotto Heavens of various sizes would cause Su Zimo's 5 small Grotto Heavens to collapse on the spot. After releasing the 5 small Grotto Heavens, Su Zimo activated his primordial spirit and unleashed the power of the Grotto Heavens to the extreme. In an instant, countless runes surged out from the 5 Grotto Heavens. Rays of light shone brightly, thunder rumbled, torrential rain, various Buddhas appeared, dragons and elephants trumpeted, Sanskrit chants reverberated, demons roared, sword tombs stood in great numbers, and the sun and moon accompanied them. All sorts of Tao techniques and talismans manifested mysterious phenomena that covered the sky and the sun. Furthermore, there was the bloodline mysterious phenomenon that he had just unleashed. In that instant, the power Su Zimo erupted with reached the pinnacle. The Qinglian of creation flickered with life. Together with the 5 Grotto Heavens, it instantly defeated the 3 Grotto Heavens. The runes were like an ocean, surging forward and swallowing the Corpse God King and the other 3. The entire process took a long time to describe, but it actually happened in an instant. The appearance of the 5 Grotto Heavens shook the hearts of all the kings. By the time they reacted, the Corpse God King and the 3 Peak Corpse Kings had already died, killed by Su Zimo on the spot. On Torch Dragon Planet, dozens of Dragon Kings looked at each other in shock. Since this human king had left Torch Dragon Planet, dozens of Cave Heavenly Kings had died in his hands. Just now, even the Corpse God King and the 3 Peak Tier Kings had been killed by him. As for this human king, he was only at the initial success stage of the Grotto Heaven realm. A Dragon King murmured softly, "If we wait for this person to mature, it's truly unimaginable. His potential is even terrifying." Long Ran and Long Li's spirits were lifted, and their minds were stirred. "Dragon Kings," Long Ran suggested. "Right now, Zimo has killed the other party's Cave Heavenly Kings consecutively and his aura is at its peak. Let's take the opportunity to charge out and defeat the other party in one go." Although all the Dragon Kings were secretly shocked by the terrifying combat strength that Su Zimo had just displayed, they were still shocked. However, they calmed down quickly when they heard Long Ran's suggestion. A Dragon King shook his head slightly. His 5 Grotto Heavens are indeed shocking. However, they're only Grotto Heavens after all. Even if they're combined, there's still a limit to their strength. That's right. Another Dragon King agreed. Even if the Corpse God and the others are dead, it won't affect them much. Up until now, the number of Grotto Heavens has not decreased by much. Up till this point of the battle, less than 100 Grotto Heavenly Kings had died in the cosmos. For an army of 5,000 Grotto Heavenly Kings, it was indeed negligible. The Dragon King continued, as long as the remaining Grotto Heavens join forces and attack together, even if Su Zimo creates 10 or 100 Grotto Heavens, it won't matter, let alone 5. Long Ran was displeased, but he could not say anything and could only harumph softly. He was only a true spirit. If he charged out, he would only be sending himself to his death. On the battlefield in the cosmos outside the Illumination Dragon Star, it was as the Dragon King had said. The death of the corpse god did not cause much chaos in the Tomb Realm army. There was only a slight commotion in the crowd that calmed down quickly. This time round, no one gave any orders. The many Grotto Heavens had a tacit understanding and attacked at the same time, charging towards Su Zimo. Thousands of Grotto Heavens tore through the air and streaked through the air, forming an impenetrable net that enveloped down. Countless Dao techniques and secret skills seemed to have formed a massive tsunami in the cosmos, overturning countless stars and surging over. Not only that, there were thousands of Grotto Heavens of various sizes that descended as well. It was a spectacular scene. What kind of scene was it when more than 5,000 kings attacked at the same time? The surrounding cosmos was almost shattered into pieces. The 5 Grotto Heavens appeared dim and dull under such an attack. Su Zimo was surrounded by 5 Grotto Heavens. Before they could collide with the surrounding forces, the 5 Grotto Heavens could not hold on anymore. The Dao techniques and runes dimmed and the phenomenon dissipated. Su Zimo stood in the air and his body swayed like a small boat in a raging sea that could capsize at any moment. The Dragon King was right. Although the 5 Grotto Heavens were unprecedented, they were still Grotto Heavens after all and had a limit to their power. Once thousands of Grotto Heavens joined forces, the 5 Grotto Heavens would not be able to resist at all. What a pity! Seeing this, the Spirit Dragon King sighed softly. The dozens of Dragon Kings could clearly see that Su Zimo's death was a foregone conclusion against such an attack. More than 5,000 kings attacked at the same time. Divine weapons, Dao techniques, secret techniques, and Grotto Heavens sealed off all paths of retreat and cut off all chances of survival. The Dragon Kings could not think of any possibility for this human king to escape in the face of such an attack. Long Li seemed to have thought of something as a glimmer of hope flashed across her beautiful eyes. She muttered, perhaps there is still a chance. What? The Spirit Dragon King asked. Long Li said, back then in the evil demon battlefield, when Big Brother Su was faced with the simultaneous eruption of many supreme divine abilities, he once released a Buddhist secret technique, all Dharma Anatta. He hid in the void and was untouchable by all techniques, avoiding all attacks. Hearing this, the dozens of Dragon Kings shook their heads. The Spirit Dragon King also sighed. The Anatta laws touched upon the profound meaning of space, and is a Grotto Heaven-level secret technique. That's why he can hide in the void and enter the state of Thane, to avoid the attacks of all true spirits. However, he is now facing Grotto Heavens. The void he is in has already been shattered by thousands of Grotto Heavens. Even if he uses the Anatta laws, there is no space that can accommodate him. This is a dead end with no solution. End of chapter. Chapter 3067. Rumble. Boom. Boom. Under countless gazes, numerous divine weapons, Dao techniques and secret skills rained down. Thousands of Grotto Heavens of various sizes came crashing down and collided with the 5 smaller Grotto Heavens, resulting in a deafening explosion. Without any resistance, the 5 smaller Grotto Heavens collapsed as though they were twigs. Su Zimo's figure was engulfed by such a terrifying and ferocious attack as well. By the time everyone stopped, the cosmos had already been reduced to dust. There was no trace of Su Zimo left behind, not even a trace of blood. That's too ruthless. The brilliant Dragon King sighed. That's a true destruction of both body and soul. Not even his corpse is left. He was wiped out alive. Is there no miracle in the end? The Long Li gazed at the battlefield in a daze, as though he was searching for something. The cosmos there was shattered and only nothingness was left. Monkey and Long Ran believed that Su Zimo would not die just like that. However, at that moment, both of them had grim expressions and were still uneasy. Feel your own heart. Your heart has no place to stay. Life and death are unfettered. Illusions of the body and mind are extinguished. Dharmic emptiness is everywhere. Right then, a mysterious and ancient Sanskrit voice sounded from the shattered cosmos. Every single word seemed to contain endless mysteries. The Sanskrit voice reverberated through the cosmos for thousands of kilometers and grew louder and more shocking. What's that sound? Who's playing tricks? The thousands of kings in the cosmos were bewildered as they looked around. They released their spirit consciousnesses but did not discover anyone suspicious. The source of the Sanskrit voice was in the cosmos where Su Zimo died. However, there was nothing there except nothingness. On the Illumination Dragon planet. When the Long Li heard the Sanskrit voice, he was invigorated and laughed through his tears, exclaiming excitedly, "It's Brother Su. Brother Su isn't dead." The dozens of Dragon Kings were shocked. That can't be, right? The Spirit Dragon King couldn't believe it. He asked hesitantly, how did fellow Taoist Su survive such a massacre? It's dharmic emptiness. The Long Li said, back in the evil demon battlefield, Brother Su released it once. That's impossible. The Radiant Dragon King frowned and said, that part of the starry sky has been shattered. Even if you use the Anatta Dharma, there's nowhere to run. How can you possibly avoid the attacks of several thousand Grotto Heaven Kings? Isn't that the voice of the human king? A Tomb Realm King frowned in disbelief. Don't talk nonsense. Another Peak Corpse King immediately interrupted him and said with a frown, how is that possible? Under that kind of attack just now, even if a quasi-emperor came, he wouldn't be able to survive. At this moment, a figure gradually appeared in the shattered starry sky. He wore a green robe and had black hair. One of his eyes was black and the other was white. He stood on a pair of yin and yang fishes. Behind him was a Qinglian that reached the heavens. His brows and eyes were lowered. He held a sword in one hand and a Buddhist seal in the other. He looked solemn and dignified as he chanted scriptures. Seeing this scene, the crowd sucked in a mouthful of cold air. That human king was still alive. The Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King looked at each other in shock. Actually, the Spirit Dragon King and the others were right. A normal Anatta law was indeed only a Grotto Heaven level secret art. It was impossible to avoid the siege of thousands of Grotto Heaven Kings. The surrounding starry sky shattered and turned to dust. There was no place for Su Zimo to stand. However, Su Zimo had stepped into the Grotto Heaven realm and directly formed 5 Grotto Heavens. This caused his understanding of space to rise to an extremely high level, surpassing the Grotto Heaven realm. As for the Tai Yin Yang escape technique, it was a forbidden technique that also involved the Tao of space. These 2 space-related secret arts both came from the forbidden technique. When Su Zimo used his understanding of space to release these 2 secret arts at the same time and fuse them, a new secret art was born. Under the power of this secret art, Su Zimo's figure almost transformed into a special state. Su Zimo called it nothingness. In the nothingness state, he could avoid the attacks of thousands of Grotto Heaven Kings because this secret art had touched on a different level of power. Forbidden technique. To be precise, with Su Zimo's current cultivation realm and his control of nothingness, this secret art could only be considered a quasi-forbidden technique. Limited by his cultivation realm, it was impossible for him to release a true forbidden technique. Even this quasi-forbidden technique consumed a lot of one's primordial spirit. Ordinary Peak Kings couldn't withstand it. He had the support of the Creation Lotus platform. His primordial spirit was constantly nourished, allowing him to withstand it. However, he still couldn't use this quasi-forbidden technique with just his primordial spirit. He also had to rely on the explosion of the 5 Grotto Heavens to force Su Zimo to enter the nothingness state and avoid all the attacks of thousands of Grotto Heaven Kings. Of course, this quasi-forbidden technique didn't increase Su Zimo's strength significantly. This was because this secret art was purely a defensive and dodging technique. It didn't increase his strength at all. However, under such circumstances, the nothingness secret art played a crucial role. Not only did Su Zimo avoid all the attacks, but he also used the nothingness secret art to preserve his bloodline phenomenon. His counterattack had just begun. On the other side, after a short period of shock, the thousands of Grotto Heaven kings gradually accepted this fact, even though they didn't know what had just happened. Only peak kings like Spirit Dragon King and Radiant Dragon King vaguely guessed that Su Zimo's secret art might have touched upon a higher level of power. So what if he luckily escaped this calamity? A peak corpse king sneered. This secret art will definitely consume a lot of his energy. Moreover, he won't be able to use it a second time in a short period of time. When he comes out, we'll kill him again. Exactly. Many Grotto Heaven kings agreed. This human king could dodge it once, but could he dodge it a second time or a third time? Everyone stared at Su Zimo without blinking. As long as Su Zimo escaped from that special state, they would attack at any time. At this moment in the starry sky, Su Zimo used a divine ability. 3 more heads grew on his shoulders, and 6 more arms grew on his sides. Supreme divine ability, for heads 8 arms. He held the Qingping sword in one hand, the Tri-Jade Rui scepter in the other, and the Tai Horsetail whisk in the other. The other palms were either fists, palms, or hand seals. So what if he has 4 heads and 8 arms? Many Grotto Heaven kings snorted disdainfully when they saw this scene. 4 heads and 8 arms could only display extremely powerful combat strength in one-on-one or close combat. In such a situation, even if he had 40 heads and 800 arms, it would be useless. But at this moment, the Grotto Heaven kings suddenly heard the sound of flowing water. Chapter 3068. In that shattered starry sky, a mysterious river appeared strangely. No one knew where it came from or where it was headed to. It was dreamy and blurry. Everyone's gaze landed on this mysterious river. In that instant, they felt as if a lifetime had passed, as if the sea had turned into mulberry fields and mulberry seas into mulberry fields. At that moment, Su Zimo had already faded from his illusory state and returned to normal. He stepped on the mysterious river and the image of a turtle and snake appeared beneath his feet, carrying him along with the waves. Boom! Before everyone could react, a loud bang sounded from Su Zimo's body and 100,000 feet tall phantom rose from the ground. It had 4 heads and 8 arms and was omnipresent. It stood side by side with the grade 12 creation Qinglian's bloodline phenomenon and gradually fused. When the battle soul fused with the bloodline phenomenon, the starry sky trembled and the weather changed. Su Zimo's aura surged as well. The release of the ancient and modern Dao technique caused Su Zimo's physique and bloodline power to increase by a terrifying 16 times. Just the grade 12 creation Qinglian's bloodline phenomenon alone was enough to fight against perfected Grotto Heavens. After fusing with the battle soul, the power of the phenomenon increased tremendously. Right now, with the augmentation of the ancient and modern Dao technique, its strength increased by 16 times. This meant that no Grotto Heavens could defend against Su Zimo's charge. The secret technique of the ancient and modern Dao was to make use of the long river of time to cleanse one's body and increase one's essence, spirit and power of blood qi at the cost of one's lifespan. There were some flaws in that secret technique. For example, it consumed too much of one's lifespan, 10,000 years in a single breath. Even Grotto Heavenly Kings could only last for 100 breaths after releasing the ancient and modern Dao technique. That secret technique could not increase the power of the Grotto Heavens as well. If the Grotto Heavens wanted to transform, they would need the accumulation of heaven and earth essence qi and comprehension of Dao techniques. Even so, the ancient and modern Dao technique was still terrifying and could be said to be a supreme secret technique to increase one's combat strength. Exclamation point! In a flash, Su Zimo charged into the crowd and slashed forward with his Qingping sword. The perfected Grotto Heavens of the 3 peak kings shattered instantly and could not defend against it at all. Their bodies were sliced into 2 by the Qingping sword as well. Their essence spirits were struck by the sword qi and died on the spot. Even a peak king would not be able to block a single strike from Su Zimo. As for Su Zimo, with the help of his 4-headed and 8-armed state, when he slashed out with the Qingping sword, he raised the Tri-Jade Rui scepter and smashed it at anyone he saw. He controlled the Tai Horsetail whisk and whipped everyone he saw. Bang, bang, bang. The grotto heavens around him, big and small, simply could not stop Su Zimo's onslaught. Even though the Sanbao Rui scepter and the Tai horsetail whisk didn't have the sharpness of the Qingping sword, Su Zimo's combat strength skyrocketed with the help of the ancient and modern battle techniques. With a raise of his hand, he could defeat a peak grotto heaven expert. His 8 arms swung about, displaying all kinds of killing techniques. His fists, palms, fingers, elbows, knees. From head to toe, there wasn't a single part of his body that wasn't a lethal weapon. Many peak-tier kings wanted to gather as many people as possible to surround and kill Su Zimo. As long as thousands of grotto heaven kings worked together, they would definitely have a chance of severely injuring him. However, in the chaos, before they could organize themselves, Su Zimo had already charged over and scattered the crowd. Before the crowd behind him could even touch the corner of Su Zimo's clothes, he had already killed his way elsewhere. As such, the thousands of grotto heaven kings were unable to form an effective encirclement. No one could stop Su Zimo's onslaught. They couldn't even delay him for a moment. With the battle soul behind him and the enhancement of his bloodline phenomenon, Su Zimo, who was in his 4-headed and 8-armed state, rampaged through the crowd. He was unstoppable. He was simply a human-shaped killing machine. Everywhere he went, people were thrown off their feet, blood spewed, grotto heavens shattered, and wails filled the air. If anyone blocked him, he would kill them. If Buddha blocked him, he would kill Buddha. Battle corpses, perfected grotto heavens, divine weapons, and spirit treasures were all blocked by Su Zimo's 8 arms and the Qingping sword, Tri-Jade Rui scepter, Tai horsetail whisk, and 9 heaven life soil. It's the Dozhan Emperor's taboo secret manual, the Dozhan Catalog. A peak-tier king recognized the origin of this secret technique and exclaimed, "The Dozhan Catalog had been lost for many years." In this life, even some of the grotto heavenly kings present had heard of this taboo secret manual, but they didn't know how powerful it was. It was only now that everyone truly felt how terrifying the Dozhan Catalog was. On planet Torch Dragon. The dragons were dumbfounded when they saw this scene, unable to recover for a long time. It's actually the Dozhan Catalog. No wonder. The Spirit Dragon King sighed. Legend has it that during the Dozhan era, the Dozhan Emperor relied on this secret technique to be invincible among his peers. Now that I've seen it, he truly lives up to his reputation. However, I heard that the secret technique in the Dozhan Catalog requires one to pay an irreversible price. The Radiant Dragon King revealed a worried expression. The Spirit Dragon King nodded. Such a powerful secret technique can't be used casually. It said that every breath will reduce one's lifespan by 10,000 years. The Radiant Dragon King said, "In that case, after 100 breaths, this Su Zimo will die from exhaustion of his lifespan before anyone else can make a move." The Spirit Dragon King sighed softly and nodded. At the same time, on the star battlefield, some peak-tier kings also learned of this matter and reminded loudly, "Fellow Taoists, don't panic. Avoid him first. This secret technique reduces one's lifespan by 10,000 years per breath. As long as we last for 100 breaths, this person will definitely die." The original battlefield was already in chaos, and thousands of heavenly abode kings had been utterly defeated. However, hearing this, the king's spirits were lifted, and their hope and fighting spirit were reignited. 100 breaths would pass in the blink of an eye. Could they not hold on? They couldn't afford to offend him, but couldn't they just hide? Thinking of this, the kings turned around and fled, avoiding all directions. However, the surrounding space had already been sealed. During the battle, space had been shattered. Not only were they unable to tear open the void to leave, but they also couldn't use any spatial teleportation talismans. They could only rely on their movement techniques to flee. However, their movement techniques and speed were no match for Su Zimo's at all. Su Zimo unleashed his ethereal wings, wind and lightning wings, earth-traversing golden light, rock wings, and many other movement techniques. Coupled with his terrifying blood chi, he floated in the river of time, traveling 10,000 miles with each step. Under this starry sky, no one could escape Su Zimo's slaughter. Not only that, but Su Zimo's attacks also became even more violent and ferocious. One of his eyes turned black and one of them white. He used the horsetail whisk in his hand to write 12 strange runes in the void, quickly condensing 12 terrifying heavenly gods. Su Zimo stood on a tortoise snake. His black hair danced in the wind, and his eyes were like lightning. He had 4 heads and 8 arms, and 12 heavenly gods surrounded him. His aura was monstrous and unparalleled. Everywhere he passed, only corpses were left behind, and paths of blood were left. The dragons on planet Illumination Dragon looked at the battlefield outside in shock. For words suddenly flashed through their minds. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. This scene was like a huge wheel crushing through the starry sky, leaving behind blood-colored tracks. Thousands of grotto heavenly kings were merely mantises waving their arms in front of the wheel. They were so tiny and weak. It was only at this moment that everyone truly understood the meaning of Su Zimo's previous words. Chapter 3069. In the blink of an eye, dozens of breaths had passed. The battlefield in space was already littered with corpses and rivers of blood. In just a few breaths of time, the number of grotto heaven kings that had fallen had already reached hundreds. This meant that in a breath of time, the number of grotto heaven kings that had died at Su Zimo's hands had reached an average of 10. In his 4-headed, 8-armed state, Su Zimo unleashed his killing techniques to the extreme. Together with the 12 6-ding and 6-jia gods, he charged into the crowd and was invincible. With the augmentation of the ancient and modern battle techniques, the power of Su Zimo's essence soul also increased exponentially. This meant that the 6-ding and 6-jia gods had already surpassed peak kings in terms of close combat strength. Following behind Su Zimo destroyed the surrounding grotto heavens of the group of peak kings while the 6-ding and 6-jia gods swarmed forward. Brandishing their spears and swords, they killed the kings that had lost the protection of their grotto heavens like chopping vegetables. Initially, when the grotto heaven kings had gathered together, Su Zimo could even kill dozens of kings in a breath of time with his 4-headed, 8-armed state and the 12 6-ding and 6-jia gods. However, as the kings fled in all directions and spread out, this number decreased drastically. "Let's go!" The Spirit Dragon King seemed to have made a decision as he said in a deep voice, "Everyone, follow me and kill our way out. We will take advantage of this opportunity to turn defeat into victory." Among the dozens of dragon kings, a few immediately stood up and responded. "Wait!" A dragon king stood up and stopped everyone. He frowned and said, "Everyone, don't be anxious. I'm afraid it's useless to rush out now. Everyone, think about it. This Su Zimo is indeed invincible in his current state. However, he can only last for 100 breaths at most. Now, dozens of breaths have already passed. At this speed, Su Zimo can only kill about 1,000 grotto heavenly kings in 100 breaths of time. Everyone, don't forget that there are a total of 5,000 kings outside. He can't kill them all." When the dozens of dragon kings heard this, their hearts trembled. The dragon kings that were eager to give it a try also gradually calmed down. The situation was indeed as such. Even if that human king killed 1,000 grotto heavenly kings, there would still be 4,000 kings left. Compared to the dozens of dragon kings on planet Torch Dragon, there was still a gap of time. The Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King glanced at each other. They both hesitated. On the battlefield. 100 breaths of time, of course. In the blink of an eye, 100 breaths of time had passed, and the number of grotto heaven kings that had perished had reached a terrifying 1,000. Some of the fleeing grotto heaven monarchs heaved sighs of relief. That human king looks so murderous. He doesn't look old at all. Just now, they were only focused on running for their lives and didn't dare to look back. They stopped and looked at Su Zimo. To their surprise, the human king still had black hair and green robes. His face was ruddy, and his aura was powerful. His vitality was boundless. Exclamation point! The group of grotto heavenly kings had just stopped to look when Su Zimo arrived. Together with the 12 6-ding and 6-jia gods, he killed all the grotto heavenly kings. When the kings saw this, they gasped in shock. How did this person show any signs of his lifespan being exhausted? He was clearly still in peak condition. The peak-level king who had shouted for everyone to stay calm and avoid the brunt of the attack was also somewhat confused at this moment. However, they still had more than 4,000 kings left. They couldn't retreat just like that. Everyone listen to me. This person's lifespan is indeed decreasing rapidly. I think he's just an arrow at the end of its flight. The Pinnacle King raised his voice. We still have more than 4,000 kings. As long as we stall for time, he definitely won't be able to hold on. As soon as he finished speaking, a golden light appeared. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Su Zimo descended with the 12 merciless heavenly gods. In an instant, they surrounded and killed the Pinnacle King. Although this monarch had perished, his words still had some effect on the situation. Many Grotto heavenly kings didn't make up their minds to escape. They still wanted to stall for time and continue watching. At this point in the battle, Su Zimo naturally couldn't stop. If he stopped, he would be the one to die. Apart from the Tomb Realm, there were also the Rui Realm, Ancient Realm, Gold Realm, Flying Star Realm, Blazing Feather Realm, Empty Realm. Su Zimo couldn't remember all the kings of the various realms. Actually, the Dragon King was right. If he were to kill more than 5,000 Grotto heavenly kings, he wouldn't be able to kill them all. However, since the start of the battle, Su Zimo's first goal had been to kill as many Pinnacle Kings as possible. He had long noticed that among the 5,000 Grotto heavenly kings, there were only about 400 Pinnacle Kings. As long as he killed more than 400 Grotto heavenly kings within the time limit of the ancient and modern battle secret technique, the rest were nothing to fear. Moreover, the time he used the ancient and modern battle was far more than 100 breaths. Normal Grotto heavenly kings had a lifespan of 1,000,000 years. When Su Zimo became a king and condensed 5 Grotto heavens, he could already sense that his lifespan had increased exponentially, reaching an astonishing 5,000,000 years. This was his greatest reliance for using the ancient and modern battle secret technique. If not for his 5,000,000 years of lifespan as his foundation, he would have long left the ancient and modern battle state. It was impossible for him to fight until now. After 100 breaths, his lifespan had decreased by 1,000,000 years. However, to Su Zimo, who had a lifespan of 5,000,000 years, he was still at the peak of his age. That was why there were no signs of aging. The battle continued. To be precise, it was a one-sided slaughter. No Grotto heavenly king could withstand Su Zimo's slaughter. After 100 breaths, another 50 breaths passed. Actually, the time was very short. However, to the kings who could lose their lives at any time, every breath seemed incomparably long. Originally, they could still hold on. They only thought that after 100 breaths, Su Zimo's lifespan would be exhausted, and they would naturally win without a fight. However, just now, 100 breaths had passed, and Su Zimo's battle prowess was still the same. They were still waiting, holding on to the slightest bit of hope. However, after another 50 breaths, Su Zimo's body still showed no signs of aging. His battle prowess was still at its peak. What was even more serious was that some kings had already noticed that among the more than 1,000 Grotto heavenly kings who had died, nearly 300 were Pinnacle Kings. If all the remaining Pinnacle Kings were to die, even if there was no ancient and modern battle, who would be able to stop this person? The Grotto heavenly kings gradually couldn't hold on any longer and had the intention to retreat. Chapter 3070. Some of the remaining peak-tier kings had yet to give up and were plotting a final gamble. After all, they had more than 3,000 Grotto heavenly kings left and had sufficient numbers. Humiliation was one thing. More importantly, they were truly indignant if they were to return dejectedly. There was no way anything could go wrong with the Illumination Dragon King coordinating the invasion of the Illumination Dragon domain with the Tomb Realm. However, who would have thought that a human king would appear out of thin air and release such shocking combat strength? Up till this point of the battle, more than 1,000 kings had already died in less than 100 breaths. He was alone. That was the thought that lingered in the minds of the remaining peak-tier kings. The peak-tier kings communicated with each other using their spirit consciousnesses and soon decided to join forces to fight. If they failed, they would escape immediately. Suddenly, an extremely intense spirit consciousness fluctuation appeared in the cosmos. Dozens of peak-tier kings joined forces once more and channeled their essence spirit secret skills at the same time to attack Su Zimo with their spirit consciousness. Naturally, they witnessed how Su Zimo wielded the Qingping sword to severely injure the corpse god king. However, no matter how strong the Qingping sword was, it could not defend against their combined attacks. Furthermore, up till this point of the battle, Su Zimo had been maintaining his powerful combat strength using such a terrifying secret skill. The power of his essence spirit must have been greatly depleted. In his four-headed and eight-armed state, this person was invincible in melee combat. His essence spirit might be their only chance to turn the tables. If they saw that the situation was bad, they could retreat at any time. Dozens of essence spirit secret skills of peak-tier kings tore through the air silently. Wherever they passed, the cosmos trembled and ripples appeared like the surface of a lake. Su Zimo touched his glabella gently with his fingertip and conjured a secret skill. Channeling his essence spirit, a dragon scale appeared and blocked in front of him. Reverse scale. Upon seeing this secret technique, the dragons immediately recognized it and exclaimed with strange expressions. The dozens of essence spirit secret skills collided with the reverse scale silently. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged. The dozens of peak-tier kings shuddered and grunted in pain. As they had expected, Su Zimo's power of essence spirit was indeed greatly depleted. Otherwise, this reverse scale alone would be enough to kill them all. The primordial spirits of several dozen peak king level experts were impacted, causing their consciousness to go blank for a brief moment. Seizing this opportunity, Su Zimo descended from the sky with the 12 heavenly deities. Like a tiger entering a flock of sheep, they slaughtered in all directions. This scene was like the last straw in everyone's heart. The remaining 3,000 or so Grotto Heaven kings trembled with fear, and their spirits completely collapsed. All thoughts of resisting and counterattacking instantly vanished, and they fled madly into the distance, utterly defeated. Su Zimo stood in the starry sky and did not continue to pursue. He dispersed the battle soul and let out a sigh of relief. If these Grotto Heaven kings were all unafraid of death, it would be very difficult for him to stop them. However, after reaching the Grotto Heaven realm, no one wanted to die so easily. More than 100 realms joined forces. The various kings wanted to plunder the dragon realm and gain some benefits. No one wanted to throw their lives away. A starry sky not far from Torch Dragon Planet suddenly split open. The hornless dragon king walked out of it, his footsteps somewhat staggering. Her face was pale and her body reeked of blood. It was clear that she was severely injured. However, her gaze was cold as she merely took a deep breath of air. Ignoring her injuries, she sped towards Torch Dragon Planet with all her might. The hornless dragon region had already fallen. Although she sensed the danger in advance and retreated towards Dragon Island with her clansmen, she was still hunted down by the armies of the Blood World and more than 100 other realms. The dragons suffered heavy losses. Only half of her clansmen managed to reach Dragon Island alive. Thereafter, she received news from Longli. A single look at it and the hornless dragon king understood what happened. Burning with anxiety, she tore through the void and wanted to descend onto Torch Dragon Planet. However, the space around Torch Dragon Planet was sealed and she could only rush over from a nearby starry sky. With that delay, the hornless dragon king already had an ominous premonition. The betrayal of a few dragons in the hornless dragon region was enough to cause the region to fall and suffer heavy losses. If the Torch Dragon King betrayed the dragons, all her clansmen in the Torch Dragon region would be massacred. It would be difficult for Long Li and the others to leave alive as well. It's over for the dragons. A sense of sorrow rose in the hornless Dragon King's heart as she recalled everything that happened today. How did the dragons end up in this state? Before she arrived at Torch Dragon Planet, the hornless Dragon King smelled a strong stench of blood. Although she had expected it, her heart still sank. Vor met with misfortune as well. The hornless Dragon King gripped her fists tightly and could not calm her anger. She could not help but roar into the skies and let out a shrill and hoarse dragon roar. Roar! Before long, A dragon roar sounded from the direction of Torch Dragon Planet as well. That voice belonged to Long Li. The hornless Dragon King was stunned for a moment before joy surged on her face. She quickened her pace and rushed towards Torch Dragon Planet. I was still alive. Before long, the hornless Dragon King arrived near Torch Dragon Planet. Mother! On Torch Dragon Planet, Long Li waved his arms and shouted. When the hornless Dragon King saw that Long Li was fine, she was finally relieved. At that moment, she finally noticed the tragic and bloody battlefield around her. The corpses of many Grotto Heaven kings floated in the cosmos with their blood still warm. Countless storage bags and Grotto Heaven fragments were scattered everywhere. At a glance, the blood of kings filled the cosmos for thousands of kilometers in an extremely shocking manner. In that tragic battlefield, there was only a single living person who was walking and stopping. It was a person who looked frail and did not match the atmosphere of the battlefield. Dressed in green robes and with black hair, he had refined features and a calm expression, exuding a scholarly aura. The green-robed man was cleaning up the battlefield and collecting the storage bags and Grotto Heaven fragments that were left behind. Naturally, the hornless Dragon King recognized Su Zimo. However, she did not know what happened earlier on. Her clansmen on Torch Dragon Planet were safe and sound. However, there were no dragons that died in the cosmos. They were all kings of other races like the Tomb Realm. That was right. An Emperor Lord of the Dragons must have arrived in time and destroyed more than 1,000 kings to protect Torch Dragon Planet. However, on second thought, the hornless Dragon King was confused. If an Emperor Lord of the Dragons killed a king of other races, why was Su Zimo the one cleaning up the battlefield while the other Dragon Kings watched without anyone stepping forward? Furthermore, the Dragon Kings were looking at Su Zimo strangely. There was even a hint of fear in their eyes. Mother, you're injured? Long Li went up and asked in concern. I'm fine. The hornless Dragon King shook her head and asked, which Emperor Lord of the Dragons saved you guys? I have to thank him personally. Emperor Lord of the Dragons? Long Li was stunned for a moment before smiling. There's no Emperor Lord of the Dragons. It was Brother Su who saved Torch Dragon Planet and the millions of clansmen here. Brother Su? The hornless Dragon King frowned slightly and asked in confusion, which Brother Su? It's Su Zimo. Oh, he's also Brother Su Zhu. Long Li looked at Su Zimo who was in the cosmos battlefield. The hornless Dragon King followed Long Li's gaze and saw Su Zimo turning around as well. This slightly scholarly human cultivator nodded at her and smiled warmly. The hornless Dragon King was speechless. Chapter 3071. You mean to say that fellow Taoist Su helped kill a few Grotto Heavens? The hornless Dragon King turned to look at Long Li and asked again. No. Long Li said seriously, the 1,000-odd Grotto Heavens outside were all killed by Brother Su in less than 100 breaths. The remaining 3,000-odd Grotto Heavens and the army of billions were all scared away. At that moment, the hornless Dragon King's mind was blank as he blinked his dragon eyes in confusion. If he had not witnessed it personally, who would have thought that more than 1,000 Grotto Heavens would die in the hands of an ordinary human king? The hornless Dragon King turned to look at the Spirit Dragon King, the Brilliant Dragon King and the others with a questioning look. The Spirit Dragon King coughed gently and said, is right. Just now, fellow Taoist Su stepped in and killed everyone. That's why the Illumination Dragon Planet was saved. The other Dragon Kings did not say anything, tacitly agreeing. Although the hornless Dragon King could not believe it, he still took a deep breath and tried his best to digest this matter. A moment later, the hornless Dragon King gradually calmed down. As though he had thought of something, he looked at the Spirit Dragon King and the others and asked with a frown, you guys were just watching over here and didn't help? The Spirit Dragon King, the Brilliant Dragon King, and the other Dragon Kings blushed in shame. We're ashamed. The Spirit Dragon King sighed. It's not our fault. A Dragon King raised his brows slightly and said, this battle ended too quickly in less than 100 breaths. We wanted to help, but we couldn't react in time. The monkey could not take it any longer. He scoffed and scolded, you bunch of dragons are cowardly and afraid of death. You've been discussing for so long but no one dares to help. All you do is watch from the side. Why are you acting innocent now? Stupid monkey, who are you scolding? You foreign race, who are you calling cowardly? It's not up to a monkey like you to criticize our dragon race. The dragon kings who were cowering in the face of the Tomb Realm army earlier on were enraged and stood out. The Spirit Dragon King and the Brilliant Dragon King looked at the Dragon Kings and felt ashamed. Shut up all of you. The Spirit Dragon King hollered. Spirit Dragon King, what is the meaning of this? The Dragon Kings were still unwilling to give up and kept pestering him. At this time, Su Zimo finished cleaning up the battlefield, landed on Torch Dragon, and walked over. The Dragon Kings immediately quieted down. What were you arguing about? Su Zimo asked calmly. His gaze turned and landed on the Dragon Kings. The Dragon Kings remained silent. They lowered their heads subconsciously and avoided eye contact. No one dared to look him in the eye. Baring their fangs and brandishing their claws at the weak, subservient to the strong. At the sight of this, Monkey's face was filled with disdain as he spat. When the dragons heard this, they felt extremely uncomfortable, but they couldn't say anything. The original dragons were not like this. The Nightmare Dragon King bowed deeply at Su Zimo and said, Fellow Taoist Su Zimo, this dragon will remember your kindness. There's no need for that. Su Zimo waved his sleeves and supported the Nightmare Dragon King's body gently. Back then, the Hornless Dragon King had helped him outside the celestial tribute world as well. He remembered everything. Su Zimo cupped his fists. I was forced to get involved in this battle today and had no choice. Since we know that you're fine, we'll bid farewell now. Although he helped Torch Dragon region resolve the crisis, Su Zimo was still unwilling to get involved in the battle between dragons and phoenixes. Just now, he was fighting outside and the dragons were watching the battle on Torch Dragon Planet. He was already extremely disappointed. Now that he saw that Long Li and the Nightmare Dragon King were fine, he did not intend to stay any longer. The survival of the dragons had nothing to do with him in the future. Suddenly, two massive suppressive auras descended and enveloped the skies of Torch Dragon Planet. Immediately after, the voids tore open and two figures with terrifying auras, a man and a woman, appeared. They looked down at the battlefield from above. Emperor Realm experts. Furthermore, there were two dragon emperors. Greetings, Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor and Frost Dragon Emperor. The dozens of Dragon Kings were shocked when they saw the two Dragon Emperors and turned to greet them hurriedly. Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor had a head of scarlet hair and was clearly from the Illumination Dragon lineage. His gaze was like a torch and his body burned with flames as he descended slowly. The Frost Dragon Emperor was an old woman with long grayish-white hair. She had a cold expression and held a crystalline frost scepter in her hands as she descended on Torch Dragon Planet as well. Master! The Hornless Dragon King went forward and bowed, asking, How's the battle of the emperors on Dragon Island? The Frost Dragon Emperor hesitated for a moment before replying, We've won for now. The Hornless Dragon King could tell that the Frost Dragon Emperor's tone was heavy and guessed that the situation on Dragon Island was not optimistic. The reason why the Emperor Lords of the Dragon World were able to force back the Emperor Lords of the Wutong World, Blood World and many other worlds temporarily was because of the power of the dragon souls that were buried on Dragon Island for countless years. Since ancient times, the Dragon Emperors would be buried on Dragon Island after their deaths. Although they were dead, a wisp of dragon soul would remain. Without sentience, it would be eternal and protect the final habitat of the dragons. Although the Wutong world had retreated temporarily in this battle of the emperors, their dragon souls were greatly depleted. By the time the Wutong world recuperated and adjusted themselves, Dragon Island would not be able to defend against the emperors once more. What about the other dragon regions? The Hornless Dragon King asked again. The Frost Dragon Emperor's expression darkened. The 4 dragon regions have all fallen. It was clear that the Wutong world and hundreds of other worlds had planned for this large-scale attack for a long time. The Frost Dragon Emperor looked around in surprise and said, The Candle Dragon Star was actually defended. That's a little surprising. The Hornless Dragon King said hurriedly, It's all because of fellow Taoist Su that Torch Dragon Planet and the millions of clansmen here were saved. It was only at this moment that the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor and the Frost Dragon Emperor turned to Su Zimo. Right from the beginning, the two Emperor Lords had not even spared them a single glance. Hornless Dragon King, don't brag too highly about this foreign race. The Dragon King, who was silent earlier, regained his confidence when he saw the arrival of the Dragon Emperor and said, "The reason why Torch Dragon Planet and the hundreds of dragons were saved is all because the Dragon Emperors were fighting against the Emperor Lords of the Wutong world on Dragon Island. If not for the Dragon Emperors fighting a bloody battle, how much use could a king of a foreign race be?" Monkey's eyes widened and his lungs were about to explode. The Long Li could not take it any longer and could not help but say, "What are you talking about? How dare you erase Brother Su's credit with just a few words?" "I'm speaking the truth." The Dragon King sneered. "The Dragon Emperors are the ones who deserve the most credit for this battle. Do you mean to say that this king of a foreign race is inferior to the Dragon Emperors?" The Spirit Dragon King, Radiant Dragon King, and the others remained silent. Actually, they knew what was going on as well. However, since the Dragon King had pushed the credit to the Dragon Emperors, they could not refute him. Now that the Dragon King had pinned such a huge crime on him, the Long Li could not take it at all. Long Li wanted to say more, but the Hornless Dragon King pulled her back and shook his head gently. Chapter 3072. Fire Dragon King. The Dragon Emperors fought a bloody battle on Dragon Island and naturally deserve great credit. The Hornless Dragon King said in a deep voice. However, without fellow Taoist Su, the Illumination Dragon Planet could not hold out until the Dragon Emperors arrived. There's no conflict between the two matters to begin with. Compared to Long Li, the Fire Dragon King's reply was clearly much more experienced and flawless, leaving no openings for the Fire Dragon King to use against him. Actually, there have been frequent internal conflicts between the dragons over the years as well. Their words were often laced with sabers and swords. If one was careless and gave the other party a handle, they would be accused of a heinous crime with an extremely tragic outcome. Just now, if Long Li did not deal with it properly and fell into the Fire Dragon King's trap, he might be accused of being disrespectful and traitorous. This was something that was unimaginable among the dragons of the past and was extremely preposterous. However, it happened time and time again over the years, and the dragons were all in danger. The Hornless Dragon King had seen many such scenes and naturally knew how dangerous it was. Su Zimo did not care about the merits and could not be bothered to argue with the other party. "Everyone, I'll be taking my leave." Su Zimo could not be bothered to exchange pleasantries, nor was he willing to stay here. He merely cupped his fists and turned to leave with Long Ran and Monkey. Now that he had taken Long Ran away, he had achieved his goal in this trip to the Dragon World. A bunch of ingrates. The anger in Monkey's eyes had yet to dissipate as he harumphed coldly. "What did you say?" Immediately, a few Dragon Kings stood out and hollered. "Forget it, he's just complaining. Let him be." The Spirit Dragon King stood out hurriedly to smooth things over, worried that something else might happen. The Hornless Dragon King did not mention anything about merits either. Given the current situation of the dragons, it might not be a bad thing for Su Zimo and the others to leave earlier. The Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor glared at Su Zimo's departing figure and narrowed his eyes with a cold glint. "You can't leave." Su Zimo was about to tear open the void and leave the Illumination Dragon domain when the Fire Dragon King suddenly stood out and blocked the three of them with an unfriendly expression. "Fire Dragon King, what are you doing?" The Hornless Dragon King could not stand it any longer and shouted. "What did I do?" The Hoi Dragon King was extremely calm. He sneered and said, "Why don't you ask your precious daughter what she did on the Torch Dragon Planet with this foreign being? What's the matter? Why don't you just say it?" The Frost Dragon Emperor frowned. The Zhua Dragon King said solemnly, "Long Li brought this outsider king to meet the Torch Dragon King. Not long after, the Torch Dragon King died at the hands of this outsider king." The Hornless Dragon King's heart sank as he instinctively looked at Long Li. "Nonsense." Long Li hurriedly explained, "It's because we discovered that the Illumination Dragon King was cursed and betrayed the dragon race. After Brother Su suppressed him, he wanted to use a soul-searching technique on him, causing the curse in the Illumination Dragon King's essence spirit to erupt, and he died. The Hua Dragon King sneered. As the lord of a region, the Torch Dragon King has worked hard and made great contributions. He has lived in the dragon world for so many years without any problems. However, when you paid him a visit, you discovered that he was cursed. What a coincidence that the army of the Tomb Realm arrived right after the Torch Dragon King was killed. Naturally, those two matters were unrelated. However, the fact that the Hua Dragon King connected the two matters together on purpose was naturally suspicious. Long Li declared loudly, "That's the truth." The Hornless Dragon King said deeply, "Indeed, there were dragons in the Hornless Dragon region who were disloyal and destroyed the Coiling Dragon formation to lure the Blood World in." The Spirit Dragon King stood out as well. "We were not present when the Torch Dragon King died. However, we witnessed the Fire Dragon King being cursed personally." Both the Hornless Dragon King and Spirit Dragon King were speaking up for Su Zimo. Right from the beginning, Su Zimo watched coldly from the sidelines without saying a single word. In fact, he did not even try to defend himself. There was no need to explain at all. If he had not made a move, the Torch Dragon planet would have been destroyed. There was no way he would have anything to do with the army of the Tomb Realm. Any normal person would be able to understand the reason. If he had to prove his innocence for something as such, the dragons would be rotten to the core. Unfortunately, there were two dragon emperors present. Otherwise, he might have tried to suppress the Bright Dragon King and capture his primordial spirit to take a look. The dragons will investigate whether the Torch Dragon King is cursed. Burning Dragon King spoke slowly with a hint of solemnity. The Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor spoke slowly with a dignified tone. However, even if he's cursed and betrayed the dragon race should be the one to judge and punish him. Other races shouldn't interfere. None of you can leave without an explanation. The Hornless Dragon King's heart sank as he said hurriedly, "Lord Burning Sun, although the Torch Dragon King died because of him, fellow Taoist Su did contribute to protecting the Torch Dragon planet." Of course I know." Before the Torch Dragon King could finish, the Burning Sun Dragon Emperor interrupted him coldly. "Do you think he would have survived until now if not for that?" At that point, the Hornless Dragon King did not dare to say anything else and could only look at the Frost Dragon Emperor for help. The Frost Dragon Emperor sent a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness. "This is difficult. After all, he's one of the 5 Dragon Kings and he was killed by a foreign race." The Hornless Dragon King was anxious as well. The Torch Dragon King was cursed and betrayed the dragons. He deserved death. What does it matter if he was killed by a foreign race or a fellow race? The Frost Dragon Emperor sighed gently. Indeed, it didn't matter in the past. In fact, the dragons would even thank him. However, after thousands of years, the Frost Dragon Emperor did not continue. For thousands of years, the environment for dragons had deteriorated rapidly and it was common for them to distort the truth, and the truth, she was already numb to it. Even fellow races would fight against each other, let alone foreign races. The Torch Dragon King said in a deep voice, "We don't know if the Torch Dragon King was cursed yet. However, this foreign race killed the Torch Dragon King and caused the Torch Dragon planet to be leaderless. The strong enemies of the Tomb Realm almost took advantage of this and invaded. He deserves death." The Hornless Dragon King and the others were shocked when they heard that. The Torch Dragon King wanted Su Zimo's life. Monkey clenched his fists tightly and hollered in rage, "How can there be such a ridiculous thing in this world? My brother has just saved you guys and you guys want to kill him in return." "Nobody wants to kill him," the Torch Dragon Emperor replied coldly. "A life for a life. That's the simplest logic. Human, what else do you have to say?" The Torch Dragon Emperor looked down at Su Zimo from above, as though he was about to attack at the next moment. The Long Li was so anxious that she was crying. She truly did not expect that Su Zimo would be killed by an Emperor Lord instead of dying in the encirclement of thousands of grotto heavens in the Tomb Realm after arriving in the Dragon World. "I have nothing to say." Suddenly, Su Zimo smiled. "I'm not leaving." Right from the beginning, he did not want to be embroiled in the war between dragons and phoenixes. After finding Long Ran, he merely wanted to leave as soon as possible. However, he had no choice and fought 2 huge battles in Beacon City and outside the Torch Dragon planet. Even so, he did not want any credit and merely wanted to leave. It was only at this moment when the dragons were overbearing that he made up his mind. He wanted to see just how bad the dragons were and who was the one stirring up trouble behind the scenes. You want to fight me in techniques? Come and try then. Chapter 3073. Su Zimo did not try to defend himself or beg for mercy. He had a calm expression the entire time, which was somewhat beyond Burning Sun Dragon Emperor's expectations. Right then, the Frost Dragon Emperor suddenly spoke. This matter is complicated. I think we should head to Dragon Island and ask the Dragon Emperors and the Realm Lord to make a decision. That's right. The Horned Dragon King nodded hurriedly. Indeed, we should ask the Dragon Emperors to discuss this matter before making a decision. No matter what, this was Su Zimo's last hope and there was still some leeway. It was much better than being killed by the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor here. The Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor stared at the Frost Dragon Emperor for a while before chuckling. That's good too. We'll let this foreign race die convinced. The Horned Dragon King and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Long Ran, Long Li and the others were still worried. Su Zimo was the only one who looked calm, as though he was not worried about his situation at all. Long Ran's expression was solemn as he secretly sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Zimo, ask Wu Dao's true body to come over right now. He should be able to reach the Dragon World within a day. When we reach Dragon Island later, don't get into a head-on conflict with the other party. We'll try our best to stall for time and wait for Wu Dao's true body to come to support us. Su Zimo merely smiled and did not comment. Wu Dao's true body would not leave easily because he was about to break through to the Martial Emperor realm in the Origin Martial Grotto Heaven and to protect Daiyu. If his true body wanted to descend to the Dragon World, he could do so with a single thought. The 4 dragon territories were lost and the Torch Dragon planet was the only one left in the Torch Dragon territory. The Coiling Dragon formation was already destroyed and there was no point in guarding the Torch Dragon planet. Therefore, the hundreds of dragons on the Torch Dragon planet boarded a gigantic dragon boat and headed to Dragon Island with the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor and the Frost Dragon Emperor. Su Zimo and the others were among them. Fellow Daoist Su, I'm sorry. The Horned Dragon King looked at Su Zimo with guilt. This human king had just saved hundreds of his clansmen and his daughter. Now that he was framed, his fate was uncertain. Long Li's eyes were red from crying. He stood in front of Su Zimo and the others, not knowing what to say. The Horned Dragon King said, I just asked the Spirit Dragon King, the Radiant Dragon King and the others. They agreed to testify for you. There shouldn't be any problems on this trip to Dragon Island. Even so, the Hornless Dragon King knew very well that the true decision of Su Zimo's fate lay with the Dragon Emperors or the Master of the Dragon World. I'm fine. You don't have to worry. Su Zimo smiled. The Hornless Dragon King was stunned. Shouldn't she be the one comforting Su Zimo instead? For a moment, she couldn't understand why Su Zimo was so relaxed. Perhaps he was just pretending to be calm. Otherwise, what else could he do? How did Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor become like this? Long Li couldn't help but say, you're simply distorting the truth. You're completely unreasonable. The Hornless Dragon King sighed deeply and said, I'm not sure either. In my impression, the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor was not like this. Who knew that his temperament would change so drastically and become like this? Great Desolate World. After the battle of the Great Desolate World, peace returned to the Great Desolate World. The living beings of the thousands of races rested and were thriving with vitality. Butterfly Valley. Wu Dao's true body woke up slowly from his seclusion and opened his eyes. Daiyu sat beside him in a blood-red robe and adjusted her breathing motionlessly with her eyes closed. Her side profile was fair and flawless without any makeup. However, she exuded a heart-pounding beauty. Wu Dao's true body felt a sense of warmth in his heart. Even if he were to accompany Daiyu like this without saying anything, he would feel a sense of satisfaction and peace that he had never felt before. "What are you looking at?" As though she sensed something, Dayu opened her eyes and turned to look. The two of them exchanged glances and smiled. Dayu was meticulous. Although Wu Dao's true body did not say anything, she could tell that something was on his mind through the eyes of Wu Dao's true body. "What happened?" Dayu asked. Wu Dao's true body pondered for a moment and did not hide anything. He explained roughly what happened to Qinglian's true body in the dragon world. "There's such a thing?" Dayu frowned slightly and said in deep thought, "The situation with the dragons is indeed a little strange. It's extremely different from the dragons in my impression." "The witch race should be behind this," Wu Dao's true body said in a deep voice. "Among the 100 emperor lords that invaded the great desolate world, there were 2 horse monkey emperor lords who were cursed, similar to the situation of the Illumination Dragon King." After pondering for a moment, Wu Dao's true body asked, "Is there any curse in the witch race that can cause one's personality to change?" Daiyu's heart skipped a beat as though she had thought of something. A hint of fear flashed through her beautiful eyes as she nodded. "Legend has it that there is indeed a curse. However, that was an extremely long time ago. In fact, it had to be traced back to the birth of the witch race a few eras ago." "Oh!" The eyes of Wu Dao's true body lit up. Daiyu recalled. "I've only seen some records of the witch race in an ancient ruin. It said that there were no signs of the birth of the witch race, and it was as though they appeared out of thin air. The leader of the witch race was the person known as the Emperor Lord Dark Magus of that era." "Emperor Lord Dark Magus?" Wu Dao's true body murmured softly. He had no impression of that title and had never heard of it. However, he still thought of something else. Daiyu said, "Back then, the Emperor Lord Dark Magus was the person with the greatest hope of becoming an emperor. However, he was still a step away." There's naturally no need to elaborate on the combat strength of the Emperor Lord Dark Magus. However, what truly terrified the living beings of the 10,000 races was that he possessed a secret skill known as the Yen Sheng Curse. It said that the Yen Sheng Curse can control one's heart and will. Living beings who are cursed by the Yen Sheng Curse will not show any signs of it on the surface. However, as time passes, those who are cursed will be imperceptibly influenced by the will of the caster and gradually lose themselves, their rationality, and will be manipulated by others. There's such an evil Dao technique in the world. Wu Dao's true body narrowed his eyes and murmured softly. Daiyu nodded as well. Compared to restraining one's body, controlling one's heart and will, it's naturally much more terrifying. Therefore, the witch race was later besieged by many worlds and faced a calamity of annihilation. The Emperor Lord Dark Magus died as well. However, for some reason, after that era ended, the witch race would revive in the next era. Of course, after the death of the Emperor Lord Dark Magus, the Yen Sheng Curse was lost and no one pursued this matter anymore. Wu Dao's true body pondered and said, "From the looks of it, some of the dragons should have been cursed by the Yen Sheng Curse and lost themselves and their rationality. That's a little strange as well." Daiyu continued, "Although the Yen Sheng Curse is evil, the conditions for casting it are rather harsh. As long as the target is prepared, it will be difficult for the Yen Sheng Curse to succeed. There are many experts among the dragons. How can they be manipulated by the experts of the witch race?" Chapter 3074. Qinglian is in trouble over there. "Head over and take a look," Daiyu said. "If the witch race is truly behind this and the curse of Yensheng has reappeared, the dragons can't be blamed for their plight. I've been to the dragon world once. Although the dragons are arrogant, they're not bad by nature and will repay favors. If we can help the dragons tide through this calamity this time round, it might not be a bad thing for the dragons to accept this favor." Wu Dao's true body nodded. Initially, he did not want to get involved in the war between the dragons and phoenixes. However, if the source of the battle between the dragons and the phoenixes was the sorcerer tribe, then the dragon tribe was indeed the biggest victim. Over the years, countless living beings had died in the great war between the dragons and phoenixes. This blood debt had to be settled on the heads of the magi. Wu Dao's true body had a vague feeling that things were not as simple as he had imagined. "Your injuries," Wu Dao's true body was worried about Dai Yu and was still hesitant. Dai Yu's beautiful eyes shone with a smile as she asked, "Why? Are you intending to abandon me and head to the dragon world alone?" Wu Dao's true body reacted as well and stood up holding Dai Yu's hand, laughing out loud. "All right, let's go together." In front of the two of them, all demons and monsters had nowhere to hide. During this period of time, rumors spread in the outside world. Some said that the two of them were Dao companions while others said that Araki Takashi was merely Dai Yu's capable general. After all, the two of them had only appeared publicly in the battle of the vast wilderness. This time round, Dai Yu's decision to travel with Wu Dao's true body had another meaning. It was to announce their relationship to the outside world. Dai Yu said indifferently, "It's been some time since I headed to the dragon world. It's a good opportunity to check out if the dragon emperors have improved in their methods." Wu Dao's true body raised his brow when he heard that. From what Dai Yu said, not only had she been to the dragon world, she had even fought against a few dragon emperors and won. "Miss Dai, you're so impressive," Wu Dao's main body joked. Dai Yu also smiled and said, "I'm going there this time to follow you around and travel. You'll have to do the fighting." There were many dragon emperors driving the dragon boats. They were extremely fast. Soon, they arrived near Dragon Island. Although it was called the Dragon Island, from afar, this island was not much inferior to the Heaven Realm continent. It lay horizontally in the starry sky, and the terrain was winding, as if dozens of huge dragon bodies were entangled together. In the vicinity of Dragon Island, a bloody mist pervaded the air, and the smell of blood filled the air. From this, one could see how tragic the battle between emperors was. He learned from the Frost Dragon Empress that although the dragons had relied on the dragon souls on the Dragon Island to temporarily defeat the imperial emperors from the world of Wutong and other realms, they had also suffered heavy losses. 2 dragon emperors had even perished. Currently, the dragon world was in a precarious situation. Including the master of the dragon world, there were only 9 dragon emperors left. Among them, 4 were injured. Their worlds were shattered and could not be repaired in a short period of time. If the imperial emperors from the world of Wutong and other realms made a comeback next time, the dragons would not be able to defend themselves. The only possibility was to be exterminated. Dragon Island. Konglong Hall. The master of the dragon world sat in the middle, wearing blood-stained armor. The 8 dragon emperors under him were all present, including the Scorching Sun Dragon Empress and the Frost Dragon Empress. In the hall, the remaining few hundred dragon kings were all present. The loss of the 4 dragon regions was too great for the dragons. Apart from the dozens of dragon kings from the Torch Dragon territory, there were not many dragon kings from the other 4 dragon regions. When Su Zimo and the rest arrived at the Konglong Hall, they looked at the surrounding scene and sighed. The super big world that once stood at the peak of the 3,000 worlds was now dragged down to this stage by the realm war. Looking at the remaining few hundred dragon kings in the hall, it was really sad. Of course, for Long Ran and the others, they were more uneasy and uneasy. Only Su Zimo's expression was normal. From the moment he entered the hall, he had been observing the expressions of the dragons. The dragons did not seem to be out of the ordinary. Even the few dragons that he suspected the most did not show any signs of being cursed. The Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor roughly recounted what happened on the Torch Dragon planet. When they heard that Su Zimo defeated more than 5,000 cave heavenly kings alone, many dragon kings looked at him in surprise. Some of the dragon kings frowned and were suspicious. However, some of the dragon kings looked grateful when they heard that. However, when they heard that the Torch Dragon King was killed by Su Zimo, a wave of anger rose in the hall. Immediately, a dragon stood out. No matter what contributions he made, he has to pay with his life for killing the Torch Dragon King. The Torch Dragon King was cursed and betrayed the dragons. He wanted to silence them, and that was why fellow Taoist Su was forced to retaliate. The Nightmare Dragon King tried his best to explain. The Torch Dragon King is already dead and there's no proof. You can say whatever you want. I only know one thing. This foreign race killed a Dragon King. Nightmare Dragon King, as a dragon, why are you always speaking up for that foreign race? Don't tell me you've already betrayed the dragons. Those who aren't of our race are bound to have ulterior motives. On the surface, he's helping the Torch Dragon planet, but who knows what he's plotting in the dark. Instantly, the hall fell into an intense argument. To be precise, it was a one-sided suppression. Even with the Nightmare Dragon King's status among the dragons, he could not defend against the condemnation of many Dragon Kings. Yet, many dragons echoed such a ridiculous and retarded accusation. In the minds of these dragons, there was no right or wrong. They did not care about the truth either. They were only left with a consciousness. Those who aren't of our race are bound to have ulterior motives. It did not matter if they were righteous or evil, good or bad, good or evil. As long as they were of a foreign race, everyone had the right to kill them. Of course, many of the Dragon Kings remained silent. Those Dragon Kings looked at Su Zimo with apologetic and guilty gazes. Perhaps they understood that Su Zimo was innocent. However, they did not dare to stand out in such an environment. Anyone who stood out to speak up for Su Zimo would be attacked. The dragons who were against the Hornless Dragon King were extremely excited, and their eyes even revealed a sick fanaticism. Su Zimo frowned and felt a sense of déjà vu. He seemed to have seen that gaze somewhere before. However, the hall was extremely chaotic and clamorous, so he couldn't recall it for a moment. Su Zimo remained silent the entire time. He could not speak. To be precise, no matter how the Dragon Kings argued, there would be no outcome. The key was still the attitude of the Dragon Emperors and the Lord of the Dragon World. That's enough. Right then, the Lord of the Dragon World finally spoke. The Lord of the Dragon World was expressionless as he looked at Su Zimo and said slowly, "Human, I'm sure you've seen the attitude of many members of the Dragon World towards this matter. According to the rules of dragons, if you cause the death of the Illumination Dragon King, the dragons will exterminate your entire clan. On account of the fact that you once saved the Illumination Dragon planet, no matter what your motive is, I can make the decision to spare you from being implicated." When Su Zimo heard that, he merely laughed. So, the dragons were already rotten to this extent. Chapter 3075. The Hornless Dragon King and the others were worried. It was clear that the Lord of the Dragon World was still trying to convict Su Zimo. "Outsider, why aren't you kneeling down and thanking him?" The Flash Dragon King hollered, "If not for the Lord of the Dragon World's benevolence, your 10 races would have perished because of you." The Hornless Dragon King took a deep breath and stood out once more, saying in a deep voice, "Lord of the Realm, Su Zimo has another identity. He's the peak master of the 9th sword peak of the Sword World. If we convict and kill him because of that, we'll definitely anger the Sword World." The moment he said that, the quarreling in the hall quietened down. However, there were still some Dragon Kings who snorted in disdain. "What's so great about the Sword World? They'll pay with their lives for killing my race." The Frost Dragon Emperor also said, "If fellow Taoist Su is willing to help, we might be able to unite the Sword World and resolve this crisis for the dragons." As she said that, the Frost Dragon Emperor looked at Su Zimo with flickering eyes, indicating for him to agree and tide through this calamity first. Su Zimo smiled and cupped his fists. "Thank you for your kind intentions. However, I've already resigned from the position of Sword World's peak master. I have nothing to do with the Sword World now." "Why, you're silly." The Hornless Dragon King sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness and said anxiously, "Agree first and we'll talk about it in the future. Nobody knows about this." "You're quite honest." The Lord of the Dragon World smiled faintly. "However, it doesn't matter whether you're the peak master of the Sword World or not. You have to pay with your life for the death of the Dragon King. That's right, a life for a life. Let him pay with his blood." He even slandered the Torch Dragon King for being cursed and betraying the dragons with evil intentions. Immediately, countless dragons in the crowd stood out to support the Lord of the Dragon World. Of the remaining 8 Dragon Emperors, 3 or 4 of them looked at the high and mighty Lord of the Dragon World with a hint of confusion in their eyes and a sense of unfamiliarity. In fact, an extremely daring thought appeared in their minds. However, the Dragon Emperors lowered their heads very quickly. Some of their worlds were shattered, and some of their realms were not high enough. They were no match for the Lord of Dragon Realm. This slight change did not escape Suzumo's eyes. The crowd around him was furious, but he didn't care at all. However, Long Li could no longer hold back. He stepped forward, looked at Spirit Dragon King, Radiant Dragon King, and the other dragons of Candle Dragon Planet, and said loudly, "Are you not going to speak up for him at this time? All of you on Candle Dragon owe him your lives. Dragons will always repay kindness. Can you still face the bloodline of dragons and your own conscience?" These words made all the Dragon Kings on the Torch Dragon Planet ashamed. The Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King exchanged glances before mustering their courage and stepping forward. Right at this moment, the Lord of the Dragon Realm pressed down with both hands, emitting an enormous pressure that suppressed all sounds. The Spirit Dragon King and the Radiant Dragon King had just stepped forward, but they couldn't say a word. "There's no need to argue about this." The Lord of the Dragon Realm waved his hand. "Now that we're faced with a great enemy, this foreign race isn't worth our effort to behead him in public." Immediately, a few Dragon Kings flashed out and lunged toward Suzumo with murderous auras. "Hold on." At this moment, Long Ran suddenly shouted and stepped forward. His voice was so loud and aggressive that all the dragons were stunned. Thereafter, when they saw that it was only a true dragon, many dragons sneered with disdain. "Let's see who can catch up." Long Ran was not disadvantaged in terms of aura against many Dragon Kings and even a few Dragon Emperors. He shouted, "I've known Araki Takashi for many years and we're close friends. If you guys push your luck and kill him, Araki Takashi will definitely descend upon the Dragon Realm." In Long Ran's mind, he only wanted to delay as much as possible. Araki Takashi would take a day to arrive and only 4 hours had passed. Seeing that Suzumo was about to meet with a calamity, he could not think of a countermeasure and could only brace himself and bring out Araki Takashi first. If he could intimidate these dragons, there might be a chance for a turn of events even if it was delayed for a few more hours. Initially, Long Li was filled with grief and indignation as he berated the few Dragon Kings of Illumination Dragon Planet. When he heard Long Ran's words, he nearly fainted on the spot. It was fine if Long Ran was bragging to her, but she would not take him seriously even if she smiled. Who would have thought that Long Ran would spout nonsense about how he had known Araki Takashi for many years in public? Who would believe that? That would only backfire and attract endless mockery. When the Hornless Dragon King heard that, he sighed gently and felt a sense of helplessness. The Frost Dragon Emperor shook her head gently. He truly dared to say anything in a desperate situation. Indeed, the hall fell silent for a moment when they heard the words Araki Takashi. Complete silence. Many dragons, hundreds of Dragon Kings and the 9 Dragon Emperors seemed to be stunned by that Dao title. However, the dragons burst into laughter before long. "Ha! What did that little true dragon say? He knows Araki Takashi? If you know Araki Takashi, I've even drunk with Araki Takashi before. When Araki Takashi was cultivating, this little true dragon was probably just born and was peeing on mud for fun." Initially, the few Dragon Kings wanted to step forward to suppress Suzumo. However, when they heard that, they could not help but burst into laughter. Against the mockery of the dragons, Long Ran's face flushed red. Clenching his fists tightly, his eyes spat fire as he shouted, "I know Araki Takashi. So what? I've even saved him and imparted him Dao techniques." Ha! These words caused a wave of even more unbridled laughter. Even the few Dragon Emperors chuckled gently when they heard that. That true dragon was rather interesting. To think that he would bring up Araki Takashi's Dao title to resolve the crisis. Long Li felt a sense of guilt when he saw Long Ran being mocked by countless clansmen. "It's all my fault." Long Li blamed himself internally. If I hadn't mentioned Araki Takashi to him, he wouldn't have known about Araki Takashi and wouldn't have been mocked so much. Is it funny? At this moment, an extremely unfamiliar voice suddenly sounded in the hall. The voice was neither loud nor soft. However, it spread to every corner of the arrogant dragon hall and entered the ears of every single dragon. In fact, it even suppressed all the laughter. The laughter gradually died down. The few dragon emperors frowned. They had only heard the voice but did not see who it was. Even their spirit consciousnesses could not detect it. The next moment, the void in the hall tore open and two figures descended hand in hand. It was a man and a woman. They stood in midair and looked at the dragons in the hall. The man had black hair and wore a silver mask. Only a pair of eyes that were as deep as the sea could be seen. The woman wore a blood-colored robe and her black hair was like a waterfall. Just by standing there casually, she exuded an aura that looked down on the world. Suddenly, the hall fell into a dead silence. All the dragons widened their eyes in fear, as though their throats were gripped by an invisible hand. Even breathing became extremely difficult, let alone laughing. Chapter 3076. The Dragon Emperors had solemn expressions. The Lord of the Dragon World slowly stood up from his seat and looked at the two people in midair. His heart trembled and his eyes were filled with disbelief. The Dragon Emperors had never seen Wu Dao's true body before. But they had all seen Daiyu. Back then, this blood-robed woman was like the sun in the sky. She traversed the 3,000 worlds and challenged the strongest beings of the 10,000 races. No one could stop her. Even the imperial emperors of some super-great worlds and powerful races had been defeated by her one after another. She had also come to the Dragon Realm before. She had defeated several imperial emperors in this hall before leaving in a carefree manner. Who could stand side by side with Daiyu and hold hands with her? In the 3,000 worlds, there was probably only one person who had the qualifications. Emperor Araki Takashi. Rumor had it that Emperor Araki Takashi always wore a silver mask that covered his face. It was exactly the same as the one in midair. Blood Butterfly Demon Empress. The Lord of the Dragon World said slowly. Hearing this name, there was a commotion in the hall. In this life, the Blood Butterfly Demon Empress was too infamous. Even if some dragons had never seen Daiyu before, they had heard of this name. The Lord of the Dragon World's gaze turned and landed on Wu Dao's true body. He asked in a deep voice, "This is?" Actually, the Lord of the Dragon World and the Dragon Emperors had guessed the identity of Wu Dao's true body immediately. But they were still not sure and did not dare to believe it. Why did Emperor Araki Takashi and the Blood Butterfly Demon Empress suddenly come here? Could it really be because of that true dragon? It was simply too ridiculous. The Lord of the Dragon World and the Dragon Emperors wanted a definite answer. "I am Araki Takashi." Wu Dao's true body said indifferently. As soon as these words were spoken, it immediately caused an uproar in the hall. The dragons were stunned by the Araki Takashi Dao name and even subconsciously took a few steps back. Their footsteps were chaotic and the crowd surged. In the blink of an eye, a large empty area appeared around Wu Dao's true body and Daiyu. The hearts of the Dragon Emperors skipped a beat. Who would have thought that this person would actually come? The Horned Dragon King was also dumbfounded. Long Li blinked his red eyes and covered his mouth with his hand, trying not to make a sound. He looked at Araki Takashi and Daiyu in the air, then looked at Long Ran not far away. He was completely stunned. Could it be that Emperor Araki Takashi was really brought here by Long Ran? Countless doubts flashed in Long Li's mind. Yes, that must be it. Because I once mentioned to Big Brother Long Ran in Beacon City that perhaps only Emperor Araki Takashi has the ability to quell the war of the dragons and phoenixes. At that time, Big Brother Long Ran thought of a way to tell Emperor Araki Takashi. Otherwise, Emperor Araki Takashi wouldn't be able to descend at this moment. Long Li looked at Long Ran, his eyes filled with gratitude. I was wrong to blame Big Brother Long Ran. I even mocked him. But he didn't care. He wasn't even angry because of it. He even secretly informed Emperor Araki Takashi to help me and the dragons. Not far away, Long Ran was a little scared by Long Li's passionate gaze. After Wu Dao's true body descended, Long Ran was shocked. His original intention was to scare the other party and stall for time as much as possible. Who would have thought that Araki Takashi would really appear and even come hand in hand with the Blood Butterfly Demon Emperor? This lineup, even the group of Dragon Kings who had mocked and ridiculed him just a moment ago were now bewildered. The way they looked at him had changed. Zimo must have secretly informed Wu Dao's true body. That's why he could rush over at this moment. At that thought, Long Ran looked at Su Zimo, who was beside him. With a faint smile on his face, Su Zimo nodded slightly and blinked. A single look and Long Ran understood Su Zimo's intentions. Initially, with Wu Dao's true body descending, it was difficult to continue hiding the secret of the two true bodies. However, because Long Ran suddenly stood out, Wu Dao's true body descending seemed logical and had a more sufficient reason. There was no need to expose the relationship between the two true bodies at this moment. Long Ran was secretly delighted. Su Zimo had hidden himself. This time round, he would fulfill his wish. Ever since he ascended to the dragons, he had been living a repressed life. Although he had Long Li's help later on, he did not receive much attention among the dragons. Until this moment, apart from Araki Takashi and Dai Yu who were in midair, he had already become the focus of everyone's attention. May I know why fellow Taoists Araki Takashi and Shuedai are here? The Lord of the Dragon World calmed himself down and asked in a deep voice. Bloody hell, are you deaf? Before Wu Dao's true body could speak, Long Ran stood out and hollered. Didn't you hear me say that if you push your luck and kill us, Araki Takashi will descend? Are you ignoring my words? The Lord of the Dragon World could not differentiate right from wrong and reversed right from wrong. He wanted to kill them earlier on. With Wu Dao's true body as his backing, Long Ran was extremely confident and scolded him without giving him any face. The dragons were all stunned by this scene. A true dragon actually dared to point at the Lord of the Dragon World and scold him. Although the Lord of the Dragon World had a dark expression and clenched his fists tightly, he did not take any further action. It was clear that he was wary. Wu Dao's true body ignored the Lord of the Dragon World and surveyed his surroundings, saying indifferently, "We're not only close friends, he's also my savior. Were you guys mocking him earlier on?" The hearts of the dragons skipped a beat and none of them dared to meet his gaze. They lowered their heads and kept quiet out of fear. Although Wu Dao's true body's tone was calm, the dragons could sense a bone-chilling coldness from it. It was only when Wu Dao's true body admitted it personally that the dragons were certain that this troublesome problem was truly caused by Long Ran. The few who laughed the loudest earlier on were already trembling in fear. Little Huang, Long Ran waved it off. What savior? It's all in the past. There's no need to mention it. Let's just talk about equals. Long Li's gaze towards Long Ran changed gradually. At that moment, Long Ran was indeed shining brightly. Brother Long Ran is way too low-key. He clearly knows a big shot like Emperor Lord Araki Takashi, but he has never mentioned it to anyone among the dragons. Even when he was wronged in the past, he merely smiled and brushed it off. He has never thought of asking Emperor Lord Araki Takashi to step in. I once mocked him, but he couldn't be bothered to argue with me. Right then, the Hornless Dragon King suddenly sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness and asked, "Daughter, you were quite close to Long Ran previously?" "Yes, what's wrong?" Long Li nodded. "It's nothing," the Hornless Dragon King said. "Long Ran's potential and character are not bad. He's humble, low-key, and righteous. Let's interact more in the future and keep in touch." Initially, the Hornless Dragon King did not have much of a feeling towards Long Ran. However, the more he looked at Long Ran, the more he liked him. "Brother Long Ran is indeed worthy of respect," Long Li said. "Back then, Brother Su asked me to take care of Brother Long Ran. Today, Emperor Lord Araki Takashi is also willing to cross billions of miles to descend to the Dragon World for Brother Long Ran. This is enough to show Brother Long Ran's character." Back then in the lower dimension, Big Brother Long Ran was definitely a great figure who could summon the wind and summon the rain. Otherwise, how could he have gotten acquainted with experts like Big Brother Su and Emperor Desolate Marshal and obtained their respect? Chapter 3077. I'm afraid there's a misunderstanding here. The Lord of the Dragon World said in a deep voice, "I only gave the order to kill that human king. I had no intention of harming Long Ran." "You can't kill Zimo even if you want to." Long Ran sneered, looking at the Lord of the Dragon World as though he was looking at an idiot. Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor stood out and cupped his fists. Since Araki Takashi and Shue Dai are here today, let's drop this matter for now. Let's not harm our relationship. Long Ran sneered again. You're afraid of harming our relationship now, but you wanted to kill all of us just now. Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor's expression turned ugly. They had already put down their pride and retreated, but Long Ran was still being overbearing. At this moment, Dai Yu looked at the Lord of the Dragon Realm and said indifferently, Dai, the last time I came to the Dragon Realm, you avoided a battle. You've become much bolder these years, going on expeditions everywhere and initiating wars. Her words caused a huge commotion in the hall. Apart from the few dragon emperors, even the many dragon kings present did not know about this. In some super domains such as the Dragon World and the Divine World, there were indeed peak emperor experts who could fight against Dai Yu. However, once the two sides fought, the outcome would be unpredictable. Moreover, Dai Yu did not have any ill intentions when she visited. She only wanted to challenge the experts of the various races. There was no deep hatred between the two sides, so the peak emperor experts of the super domains did not attack. Peak emperor emperors who cultivated to the perfected martial emperor realm only had one goal left. That was to take the final step and become a martial emperor. If the world was destroyed because of a battle with Dai Yu, they might miss the opportunity to become a martial emperor. Therefore, peak emperor emperors like Dragon Emperor Dao Hai chose to avoid a battle after Dai Yu's visit. Even so, Dai Yu dared to be invincible in the various major domains and come and go as she pleased. She had indeed caused a huge commotion in the 3,000 realms. The Blood Butterfly Demon Emperor's ferocious name was also made during that period of time through the many martial emperor battles. Do you know about the Yensheng curse? Dai Yu suddenly changed the topic and asked. I don't. The Lord of the Dragon World said expressionlessly. Among the dragons in the hall, the expressions of several dragons changed. Dai Yu said, those who are cursed by the Yensheng curse will be controlled by others, losing their minds and self. Although this person's appearance is no different from before, his every move, every word, and every action is under the influence and control of the caster. Hearing this, some of the 9 dragon emperors came to a realization. Some people had vigilant expressions. Their gazes turned, and they even looked at the high and mighty master of the dragon realm. What are you trying to say? The Lord of the Dragon Realm asked coldly. Dai Yu said, it's not a coincidence that you dragons ended up in your current state. Instead, you were manipulated by the witch race and walked step by step into the abyss, sinking into a quagmire. Nonsense. The Scorching Sun Dragon Monarch scolded, what kind of cultivation realm are we? How can we be infected with the Loathe Victory curse? Shue Dai Beast Monarch, if you continue to deceive us, I have no choice but to ask you to leave. Not bad. Another dragon emperor stood out and said in a deep voice, the dragons do not welcome you. In the hall, some of the dragons that had been silent and fearful suddenly had fanatical looks in their eyes again. They loudly echoed, the dragons do not welcome you. Humph. Wu Dao's true body harumphed softly. The voice was like a clap of thunder in the hall. The cries of the dragons came to an abrupt end. Countless dragons widened their eyes and felt their minds buzzing as their vision turned dark. That single harumph caused them to almost spit out blood. Suddenly, the Frost Dragon Emperor asked, may I ask, Emperor Lord Araki Takashi, how do you check if one is infected with the Loathe Victory curse? There are indeed no flaws on the surface, the Wu Dao's true body replied. As long as your essence spirit is revealed, you'll know. What a joke, the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor sneered. As Emperor Lord experts, we have to hand over our essence spirits just because of your baseless speculation. Where's my dignity as a dragon emperor? You have no dignity before me. The gaze of the Wu Dao's true body shifted to the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor and he said slowly, if you don't hand it over, I can take it personally. Before his sentence was finished, Wu Dao's true body released Dai Yu's palm and arrived before the Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor in a flash. He was way too fast. The Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor seemed to be prepared as well. He channeled his bloodline right away and his body expanded as he prepared to revert to his true form. A bloodline phenomenon appeared vaguely. A perfected world was formed behind him as well. Beside the scorching Sun Dragon Emperor, there were two other Emperor Lords who were prepared to help as well. Roar! Suddenly, the Wu Dao's true body roared, causing the three Dragon Emperors to shudder and spit out blood. The world behind them could not be formed immediately as well. The next moment, Wu Dao's true body raised his arm and punched the scorching Sun Dragon Emperor in the chest. Exclamation point! The scorching Sun Dragon Emperor's body was only half formed when it was shattered into pieces by the punch of the Wu Dao's true body, and blood mist filled the air. The Wu Dao's true body reached out and grabbed the essence spirit of the scorching Sun Dragon Emperor in his palm amidst the blood mist. It was over. In the blink of an eye, the scorching Sun Dragon Emperor was defeated and his essence spirit was trapped. By the time the dragons reacted, the Wu Dao's true body had already grabbed the essence spirit of the scorching Sun Dragon Emperor and returned to Dai Yu's side. The scorching Sun Dragon Emperor could not even last a single breath before he was suppressed. "What are you doing?" The Lord of the Dragon World was enraged and hollered with widened eyes and a murderous aura. The Wu Dao's true body ignored him and merely condensed a water droplet on his fingertip, dripping it onto the essence spirit of the scorching Sun Dragon Emperor in his palm. Shing! The moment the seemingly ordinary water droplet touched the essence spirit of the scorching Sun Dragon Emperor, it stirred up wisps of green smoke. Ah! The essence spirit of the scorching Sun Dragon Emperor let out a series of tragic cries. Right in front of everyone, dark green threads appeared on the surface of his essence spirit. They were densely packed and almost covered his entire essence spirit. Upon seeing this, the Frost Dragon Emperor and the rest of the group were astounded. The power of a curse! Indeed, the essence spirit of the scorching Sun Dragon Emperor was cursed. Furthermore, by the looks of it, the curse had been on the scorching Sun Dragon Emperor for a long time and had already covered his essence spirit completely. At that moment, the dark green threads on the essence spirit of the scorching Sun Dragon Emperor were gradually melting under the envelopment of the water droplet. The water droplet released by the Wu Dao's true body earlier on was actually the Hell Spring water. The greatest use of the Hell Spring water was that it could cleanse the power of curses. Back then, Qinglian's true body was afflicted with two major curses and she relied on the Hell Spring water to recover to her original state. After Wu Dao's true body condensed the 10 gates of hell, it was equivalent to him refining the universe and opening up hell, allowing him to mobilize the 9 springs of hell at any time. Indeed, the Hell Spring water could dispel the cleansing curse. However, the essence spirit of the scorching Sun Dragon Emperor was almost fused with the Yen Sheng curse. In such a state, the Hell Spring water was dispelling the essence spirit of the scorching Sun Dragon Emperor as well as the curse. When the curse on the essence spirit of the scorching Sun Dragon Emperor was dispelled, the life force of the essence spirit would dissipate as well. Thankfully, the essence spirit of the scorching Sun Dragon Emperor gradually calmed down after the initial pain. He seemed to be gradually regaining his rationality and found himself understanding what was happening to him. The scorching Sun Dragon Emperor looked at the Wu Dao's true body with a hint of gratitude. He could finally be freed from the Yen Sheng curse and regain his freedom. However, it was all too late. Chapter 3078. Thank you. Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor's essence spirit looked at Wu Dao's true body and sent a thought. After that, his origin spirit looked around and looked at the dragons in the hall. Sorrow and guilt surged on his face. "I'm sorry." Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor sent out his final thought and his essence spirit melted into the Hell Spring along with the curse of Yen Sheng. Most of the dragons had yet to react to the series of changes and were stunned on the spot. Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor was dead. Furthermore, he was truly cursed. Although Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor died because of Araki Takashi seemed to be helping him free. Even before Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor died, he was thanking Araki Takashi. Could the reason why the Dragon World ended up in this state today be because of the Witch World's manipulation? Some of the dragons were flustered, as though they were afraid of something. To think that Brother Scorching Sun would be cursed and lose his mind. The Lord of the Dragon World was heartbroken and sighed. Thank you, fellow Taoist desolate marshal, for helping Brother Scorching Sun break free from the curse and obtain relief. At the same time, you've also removed such a malignant tumor for our dragon race. Suddenly, the Frost Dragon Emperor said, the reason why the dragon world ended up like this is because of Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor. He doesn't have that much power. Yes, the Lord of Dragon World nodded. The other dragons might be cursed as well. I'll get to the bottom of this matter. Don't worry, everyone. Wu Dao's true body looked at the Lord of Dragon World and said indifferently, there's only one person who has the ability to lead the entire dragons into the abyss step by step. Including the Frost Dragon Emperor, a few dragon emperors and some dragon kings understood the meaning behind Wu Dao's true body's words and looked at the Lord of Dragon World. All these years, under the leadership of the Lord of Dragon World, the dragons became more and more radical, inciting wars time and time again to conquer everywhere. The pleasure of fighting and killing was indeed extremely satisfying for many dragons. When other people raised objections, they would be suppressed by louder voices. In fact, some people had long suspected the Lord of the Dragon Realm. However, in the Dragon World, the Master of the Dragon World was supreme. He had the strongest combat strength and the greatest authority. Who would dare to question him in the slightest? Except for Araki Takashi. Araki Takashi, what is the meaning of this? The Dragon Realm Lord's face sank, and he said in a cold voice, are you suspecting me? The Frost Dragon Emperor asked in a deep voice, how do we determine who is infected with the Yensheng curse? Does everyone have to offer up their primordial spirits? The risk of handing over his essence spirit for others to inspect was simply too great. Anyone would feel conflicted. That won't be necessary. Wu Dao waved his sleeves and a large number of wine cups appeared in front of him. They were filled with spring water and were floating in the air. This is the water of the Hell Spring. It can dissolve the curse. If you haven't been cursed for too long and drink the water of the Hell Spring, you still have a chance of being saved. If you're not cursed, there won't be any abnormalities even if you drink a cup. The Frost Dragon Emperor pondered and said, in other words, if you're cursed, as long as you drink a mouthful of the Hell Spring water, the power of the curse will immediately manifest. That's right. Wu Dao nodded. The other Dragon Emperor frowned and said coldly, who knows what's in your wine cups? What Hell Spring water? We've never heard of it and we don't know what's in it. Two options. Wu Dao said calmly, or I'll personally grab your primordial spirits and sprinkle them with the Hell Spring water. Or you can choose a cup yourselves. Araki Takashi. The Dragon Realm Lord was furious and scolded, aren't you being too overbearing? I'll go first. The Frost Dragon Emperor stood out and said, I believe in Araki Takashi. With his status, he doesn't have to go through so much trouble to kill us. What he's doing now is giving us dragons one last chance. With that, the Frost Dragon Emperor stepped forward, closed her eyes, and casually picked a cup and drank it. As the Hell Spring water flowed down her throat, there was a slight coolness. There was indeed a mysterious power hidden in it, but it had no effect on the Frost Dragon Emperor. Many dragons were watching the Frost Dragon Emperor's reaction. After a while, the Frost Dragon Emperor opened her eyes and said, there's nothing wrong with this spring water. You can drink it without worry. Immediately, a second Dragon Emperor stepped forward and drank a cup of Hell Spring water. After a while, this Dragon Emperor nodded and said, there's nothing wrong with this water. If you're not cursed, come and drink a cup. Ridiculous. The Dragon Realm Lord sneered. We dragons will never be manipulated by others. As the Dragon Realm Lord, I won't drink that Hell Spring water. It's fine if you don't drink it. Wu Dao picked up a cup and walked toward the Dragon Realm Lord, saying, let me toast you. Before he finished speaking, Wu Dao had already arrived in front of the Dragon Realm Lord. The Dragon Realm Lord was already prepared. With a shout, he released his great perfection world in advance. The two Dragon Emperors who wanted to help Scorching Sun Dragon Emperor also attacked again. They held up a world and suppressed Wu Dao's true body. The three Dragon Emperors attacked at the same time. Other than the Dragon Realm Lord who was a peak Imperial Emperor, The other two were ordinary imperial emperors and peerless imperial emperors. Wu Dao's true body didn't even turn his head. He flicked his finger. A drop of hell spring water pierced through the air. The huge force instantly shattered the ordinary imperial emperor's world. The dragons were shocked. Araki Takashi's combat strength was so terrifying. He didn't even touch the dragon emperor directly. He only used the water droplet from his finger to shatter a world. The world shattered. The hell spring water dripped down and splashed on the imperial emperor's body. Swish! Wisps of green smoke rose from the top of the imperial emperor's head. A few dark green threads appeared in his eyes as well. It was strange and terrifying. However, compared to scorching Sun Dragon Emperor, the Dragon Emperor's curse was not deep. After the hell spring water dispelled the Yen Sheng curse in his essence spirit, his essence spirit was also injured to a certain extent. However, his life was not threatened. Wu Dao's true body flicked his finger gently. Thereafter, he waved his sleeves and flung them back, slapping the peerless Dragon Emperor's world heavily. Boom! There was a deafening bang. The peerless Dragon Emperor's world collapsed as well. The sleeves of Wu Dao's true body carried a large amount of hell spring water mist that scattered on the peerless Dragon Emperor's body. Ah! The peerless Dragon Emperor shrieked tragically as a dark green color appeared in his eyes with a pained expression. The hell spring water was working on his body. The three Dragon Emperors attacked at the same time. In the blink of an eye, the Dragon Realm Lord was the only one left. The Dragon Realm Lord had no way of dodging. He supported a perfected world and released his bloodline phenomenon at the same time. His aura surged to its peak as he roared into the skies. His dragon roar was so loud that it pierced through the clouds. Chapter 3079. Back then, the Lord of the Dragon Realm was the only top expert who could fight against Dayu. His strength was naturally not to be underestimated. If Wu Dao's true body wanted to suppress him, he only needed to bring out Martial Universe. However, once Martial Universe was released, the commotion was too great. The power that burst forth was also extremely terrifying, close to the Arch Realm. The Fiend Lord had once reminded him not to create a commotion like the Battle of the Grand Wilderness. Facing the Lord of the Dragon Realm, Wu Dao's true body did not intend to release Martial Universe. Boom! Wu Dao's true body raised his hand and punched, condensing endless Daoan laws. Wu Dao's will collided with the Lord of the Dragon Realm's world, causing a loud bang. The Lord of the Dragon Realm's world shook continuously, but coupled with his bloodline phenomenon, it actually withstood Wu Dao's punch. If the Origin Martial Grotto Heaven took another step forward and formed a world, Wu Dao's true body's bloodline power would also increase exponentially. He could destroy the Lord of the Dragon Realm's perfected world with his bare hands. Now he was still lacking. Araki Takashi is only SOSO. The Lord of the Dragon Realm laughed loudly, his spirits lifted. Facing this world, Wu Dao's true body could also shatter it with a few punches. However, hearing the Lord of the Dragon Realm's words, Wu Dao's true body could not be bothered to waste time with him. He directly took out the health-suppressing cauldron and smashed it over. The four saint souls revolved, and dragon roars intertwined. Boom! Heaven and earth shook, and the surrounding proud dragon palace was on the verge of collapse. Dust rustled down. Immediately after, a cracking sound came from the world formed by the Lord of the Dragon Realm. Cracks appeared under the health-suppressing cauldron, spreading rapidly like a spiderweb. It shattered. In just a moment, a perfected world collapsed on the spot. Even the Lord of the Dragon Realm's bloodline phenomenon was shattered into pieces. In the Battle of the Grand Wilderness, the health-suppressing cauldron absorbed the bloodlines of the four saint beasts and was reconstructed. In the hands of Wu Dao's true body, the power that erupted was no weaker than the arch-divine weapon back then. The Dragon Realm Lord's eyes widened in shock. Before he could react, he saw Wu Dao's real body flip the prison-suppressing cauldron upside down, and the whole cauldron of hell's spring water poured down on him. Wu Dao's main body originally only wanted to toast him with a cup of spring water. Since the Lord of Dragon Realm was unwilling to submit, he could only respect him. In the blink of an eye, The master of the dragon realm was drenched from head to toe by the hell's spring. In the next moment, green smoke rose from the top of his head. Dark green threads also appeared in his eyes. They were the signs of being infected by the Yen Sheng curse. The master of the dragon realm was infected with the Yen Sheng curse to a lesser degree than the scorching sun dragon emperor. However, he was much heavier than the other two dragon emperors. Even if he could temporarily preserve his life under the hell water spring, his primordial spirit would most likely be severely injured, and he would not have much time left. The Dragon Realm Master was drenched in the hell spring water and was in great pain. Although he was still fighting with all his might just now, he seemed to have realized something at this moment. He did not make a sound, only gritting his teeth and silently enduring the pain, his body trembling. Seeing this scene, the dragons had complicated expressions, and a trace of sorrow rose in their hearts. The master of the dragon realm was also cursed, controlled, and lost his mind, leading the dragons step by step into the abyss, until today, when he was in such an irreversible situation. Under the command of the Frost Dragon Emperor and the remaining dragon emperors, the dragons in the hall drank the hell water one after another. Among them, some dragons who were infected with the Yen Sheng curse were exposed. However, compared to the number of dragons in the hall, there were not many dragons who were infected with the curse. Many dragons stared blankly at the master of the dragon realm and some of his clansmen who were enduring the pain and cleansing the curse. They were at a loss, helpless, and even disappointed. These clansmen were infected with the curse, lost their minds, and were controlled by others, which was why they did so many things to harm the dragons. However, they were not infected with any curse. All these years, they followed behind the master of the dragon realm and these dragons and committed countless crimes. In the end, they could not keep their bottom line and released the evil in their hearts, falling into madness. Although they were not infected with the Yen Sheng curse, they still lost themselves. Su Zimo could not help but be secretly shocked when he sensed all of this. The Yen Sheng curse was not the most terrifying thing. Using the Yen Sheng curse to bewitch the hearts of people, causing the originally upright and kind people to gradually transform into demons, was the most terrifying thing. The hell spring water could resolve the curse on them. However, who could resolve the curse in their hearts? Even if the dragons survived this calamity, their vitality would be greatly damaged, and they would not be as strong as before. As time passed, the Yen Sheng curse on the dragons gradually disappeared. Some dragons had been infected with the Yen Sheng curse for too long, and their ending was similar to that of the scorching Sun Dragon Emperor. Not long after, they died. However, most of the dragons who were infected with the curse survived. For them, it was a fate worse than death right now. The injuries to their essence spirits were secondary. When they recovered their minds and found themselves, everything they had done all these years naturally appeared in their minds. Every single memory was stained with the blood of their clansmen and innocent living beings, causing them to feel tormented internally. Fellow Taoist Araki Takashi, I'm sorry. The Lord of the Dragon Realm's face was pale and his aura was weak. He stood up and bowed deeply in the direction of Wu Dao's true body. You don't have to apologize to me. Wu Dao's true body shook his head gently. Up till now, the dragons had not harmed them. The dragons were the ones who suffered the most damage to the Lord of the Dragon Realm and the others, the entire Dragon Realm. The Lord of the Dragon Realm surveyed his surroundings and looked at his dejected clansmen. He could not help but feel sorrow and tears streamed down his face. The dragons that were initially powerful for a period of time were left with only these clansmen and they were in such a miserable state. He had almost destroyed the entire dragons. The calamity of the dragons this time round was not only a blow to the dragons in terms of strength. It was a heavy blow to the hearts, essence, and spirit of the dragons. No one knew how many years it would take for them to recover from such damage. Would the dragons still have a chance? Suddenly, Daiyu asked, From what I know, the conditions for the Yen Sheng curse are rather harsh. As long as you're prepared, you won't be controlled by others. Ice. At the mention of this, the Lord of the Dragon Realm sighed deeply. Back then, the Lord of the Witch World came to visit and said that he had discovered the ruins of an ancient emperor. He invited me to head there together with him, and I agreed because I was tempted. I was wary of the Lord of the Witch World the entire time and did not dare to be careless. However, there were many restrictions in the ruins, and we were all infected with a long-lost ancient poison. Given our cultivation, we can suppress the ancient poison temporarily. However, we can't dispel it, and it's a hidden danger in our bodies. Dai Yu smiled faintly. I'm sure the Lord of the Witch World knows how to dispel it long ago. The Lord of the Dragon Realm nodded and laughed self-deprecatingly. Now that I think about it, the reason why he was infected with the poison back then was to gain my trust. A few years later, when he returned to the Dragon Realm, the ancient poison in his body had already been dispelled. I asked him about the method, and he said that there was a secret method of the witch race that could dispel the poison. As the Lord of the Dragon Realm, and I was in the Dragon Realm at that time, I don't think he would dare to have any other thoughts. Dragons will never be forced by others. If he dared to use this opportunity to do anything to me, I would kill him even if I died. At this point, everyone could guess what happened next. The Lord of the Dragon Realm said, I've never heard of the Yensheng curse, nor did I know that there was such a terrifying curse in the world. I also didn't know that this curse could cause one to lose their mind and sense of self. Furthermore, after he cast the technique, the ancient poison in my body was indeed dispelled, and I didn't sense any signs of being infected with the curse. Therefore, I let him leave. Dahai, how could you be so greedy and careless? The Frost Dragon Emperor sighed in sorrow for his misfortune. Now that the Lord of the Dragon Realm was being controlled, it was much easier to create an opportunity for the other dragons to be infected with the curse. Su Zimo suddenly asked, What poison did you get infected with? This question was a little abrupt and came from the human king who had been silent all this while. The Lord of the Dragon Realm glanced at Su Zimo and hesitated for a moment before saying, The Nether Calamity Poison. Chapter 3080. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat when he heard about the Nether Calamity Poison. When he heard the Lord of the Dragon World describe this matter, he mentioned an ancient poison that even Imperial Lords could not resolve, and thought of what had happened in the Flower World. Just as expected, the poison that the Lord of the Dragon World was infected with was the Nether Calamity Poison that had once spread in the Flower World. In a previous epoch, the Poison World relied on this poison to become one of the super worlds, and other worlds were not willing to provoke it. Back then, when they headed to the Land of Day and Night, they were ambushed by cultivators of the Tomb Realm, Blood World, and Poison World. Su Zimo saw traces of witch cultivators along the way. This time round, there was also the witch race stirring up trouble behind the scenes. Among the worlds that joined forces with the Wutong World to attack the Dragon World, there were also the Tomb Realm, Blood World, and Poison World. Could all of that be a coincidence? If it was not a coincidence, what was the connection between those worlds and the Witch World? Or could it be that the Blood World, Tomb Realm, and Poison World were already controlled by the Witch World using the Yensheng curse? It was hard to say for the other worlds. However, the Lord of the Dragon World was infected with the Nether Calamity Poison and then planted the Yensheng curse by the Lord of the Witch World. It was clearly done by the Witch World and Poison World. Be it the Nether Calamity Poison or the Yensheng curse, they could be said to be the greatest killing weapons of the Witch World and Poison World. Only the masters of the two worlds working together to plot against the Lord of the Dragon World would have a chance of success. Of course, there were still some doubts. Logically speaking, the Nether Calamity Poison and the Yensheng curse should have been lost long ago. How could they be revived in this era? Furthermore, Su Zimo did not believe that there was any secret technique of the witch race that could resolve the Nether Calamity Poison. Then, what did the Lord of the Witch World rely on to resolve the Nether Calamity Poison in him and the Lord of the Dragon World? There was such a huge problem with the dragons. The Flower World was probably unable to escape the spread of the Nether Calamity Poison. Was there no problem with the Wutong World that had been fighting with the dragons for many years? The war of dragons and phoenixes that engulfed hundreds of worlds lasted for many years. On the other side, the two super worlds of the Kunpeng world also broke out. Just these two battlefields involved nearly half of the worlds were involved, and countless living beings died because of it. The witch tribe was behind the battle of the dragons and the phoenixes. Did the sorcerer tribe participate in the Battle of the Rock? Back then, outside the land of day and night, in order to save Xiao Yao, he had fought against the Kuan race's experts. At that time, the king of the Kuan was with the king of the sorcerer race. Furthermore, according to Carefree's description, the Kuan race was not normal either. Normally, when someone discovered that Xiao Yao had the Kuan Ping bloodline and showed signs of atavism, the most important thing to do was to protect him and nurture him with all the resources. However, Carefree was almost killed by the king of the Kuan race, even though the success rate of the blood transfusion technique was very low. Su Zimo could faintly sense that there seemed to be a pair of invisible hands weaving a giant net in the dark, covering the countless realms. All the realms and living beings on the giant net were merely prey for the pair of giant hands. The internal problems of the dragons had been resolved. But to the dragons, there was an even greater danger. The armies of Wutong World and hundreds of other worlds had already occupied more than half of the territory of the Dragon World. A great war could break out at any time. At that time, the dragons might even be exterminated. There were only 8 imperial emperors left among the dragons. 4 of them were severely injured in the previous The Arch battle, and their worlds were shattered. Among the remaining 4, the 3 dragon emperors, including the Lord of the Dragon World, had just broken free from the Yen Xing curse. Their essence spirits were either lightly or heavily injured, and their combat strength was greatly reduced. Once the Arch battle broke out, even with the dragon souls on Dragon Island, the dragons would not be able to hold on for long. Emperor Araki Takashi, the Lord of the Dragon World, came in front of Wu Dao's original body with a heavy expression. He gritted his teeth and knelt down. Realm Lord! This scene attracted the exclamations of countless dragons. Although Araki Takashi was invincible, he was only an imperial emperor after all. The Lord of the Dragon World was also an imperial emperor and the lord of a realm. It was indeed unexpected and shocking for him to do such a thing. I, Mohai, am no longer worthy of being the lord of the Dragon World. As for my dignity, I have been manipulated by the lord of the Sorcerer World for so long. What dignity do I have left? Emperor Mohai laughed bitterly and said, Emperor Araki Takashi, I no longer have the face to live in this world. I will guard Dragon Island until I die in battle. But these people of the dragons are innocent. I hope that Emperor Araki Takashi can help me. Take my people away and leave some hope for the dragons. Senior Araki Takashi, please help. Long Li also ran over with red eyes. As she spoke, she also knelt down. There's no need for that. Wu Dao waved his sleeves and helped the 2 of them up. Long Li also seemed to know that her words carried little weight. She did not know Araki Takashi. One was in the sky and the other was on the ground. She subconsciously looked at Long Ran, who was not far away. Long Li's expression was dark and pitiful. There was a hint of pleading in her beautiful eyes. Long Ran could not take it anymore. He coughed softly and said, Little Huang, look, how about? Of course, if it's really difficult, I can understand. It's nothing. Wu Dao waved his hand and said, There's no need to go through so much trouble. Rest well on Dragon Island. I will take care of this. Emperor Mohai, Long Li, and the other dragons were stunned. They did not understand what Wu Dao meant. Too many living beings have died in the war between the dragons and the phoenixes. It's time to stop. Wu Dao said calmly. This sentence was said very plainly, but when everyone heard it, they felt a kind of unquestionable power. Long Li could not believe her ears. Even Emperor Mohai did not dare to hope that Wu Dao would come out and settle this war that had lasted for many years. Initially, he only hoped that Wu Dao's true body could save some of his clansmen so that he could die without regrets. He could not believe that anyone had the ability to end the war between the dragons and the phoenixes. Fellow Taoist Araki Takashi, please allow me to say something. Pondering for a moment, Emperor Mohai said, There are hundreds of worlds in the Wutong World, Blood World, Tomb Realm and so on. There are more than 100 Imperial Emperor experts. Furthermore, they are coming aggressively with an army. I'm afraid they won't stop the war easily. Fellow Taoist Araki Takashi, you only have two people on your side. Against hundreds of worlds and an army of countless living beings, I'm afraid, Emperor Mohi could tell that Daiyu was injured. Although Araki Takashi had a glorious battle record, the other party had more imperial emperors this time round and their formation was even larger. Perhaps only a great emperor would be able to suppress the power of hundreds of realms by himself. We have enough. Wu Dao's true body glanced at Daiyu before continuing. Furthermore, it's not up to them to decide whether to fight or to make peace. The dragons were shocked when they heard that. What war between the dragons and the phoenixes? Wu Dao's true body said meaningfully, this is more like the Dragon Phoenix tribulation. Chapter 3081. The reason why Wu Dao's true body decided to step in was because he did not want more worlds and innocent living beings to be embroiled in this world war and die for no reason. The war between the dragons and phoenixes lasted for many years and countless living beings died. Be it the dragon world or the Wutong world, there was no victor. In fact, there might even be a huge problem with the Wutong world as well. Coupled with the influence of the curse of Yen Sheng and the help of the witch race, the war escalated until it was irreversible today. This war was a huge disaster for the dragon world and Wutong world. That was the reason why he lamented about the Dragon Phoenix calamity. Night fell. Because of the war that broke out not long ago, the night around Dragon Island was shrouded in a layer of blood. Wu Dao's true body and Daiyu stood side by side under the moon. Too many people have died in this great battle between the dragon and the phoenix. Daiyu looked at the blood around her and said, this blood debt has to be blamed on the Lord of the Witch World. Wu Dao's true body asked, what's the motive of the Witch World's Lord? If the Lord of the Witch World could already influence the dragons and even control the entire dragon world and Wutong world through the curse of Yensheng, why did he want the two superworlds to collide and cause such a tragic world war? What benefits could the Witch World and Poison World gain from this? That's indeed strange, Daiyu said deeply. If we're talking about benefits from the war, the Tomb Realm should be one of them. Su Zimo nodded. Initially, the Tomb Realm was only a high-level world. However, through the battle outside Illumination Dragonstar, they could see that the strength and foundation of the Tomb Realm was unfathomable and far surpassed that of a high-level world. The fact that this war lasted for thousands of years meant that the Tomb Realm could obtain an endless source of corpses. The more experts that died, the stronger the Tomb Realm would be. Apart from the Tomb Realm, the Blood World should be one of them as well. Wu Dao's true body pointed to the blood around him. The blood color here is fainter than when we descended previously. This meant that the Bloodvine race was cultivating with the blood of experts in the war. It still doesn't make sense, Daiyu said. The Witch World and Poison World instigated the war just to strengthen the Blood World and Tomb Realm? Why would they trust each other to this extent? It is indeed strange. Wu Dao's main body fell into deep thought. A moment later, Daiyu said, you may be famous after the Battle of the Great Wilderness, but it won't be easy to force the experts of hundreds of domains to retreat. Moreover, who knows how many of these imperial emperors have been controlled by the Yensheng curse and have lost their minds. Under such circumstances, these imperial monarch realm experts wouldn't be afraid of the ferocious reputation of Wu Dao's main body at all, and it was even to the extent that they might fight to the death and bring him down with them. If Wu Dao used his full strength without holding back, Daiyu wouldn't be worried. However, Wu Dao's true body was afraid of the heavenly courts and would not use martial tempering universe. Under such circumstances, it was hard to say who would win against more than 100 imperial emperors. Moreover, Daiyu knew that Wu Dao's original body wasn't truly afraid of the heavenly court. Wu Dao's main body was only worried that her safety would be threatened after attracting the attention of the heavenly court. After all, her injuries had not healed and she could not unleash much of her combat strength. Why don't we call Nine Tails and the others over? Daiyu asked. Wu Dao's main body smiled and patted Daiyu's palm gently. Don't worry. In a few days, no one in this medium-class world will be able to hurt me. 10 days later. Zhongyu City was originally a dragon city in the Horned Dragon domain, one of the 5 great dragon regions. At this moment, it was already occupied by the army of World Wutong. On this day, Realm Lord Wutong was in the main hall discussing with more than 10 Imperial Emperor experts under him when to launch the final battle and take down Dragon Island in one fell swoop. Suddenly, a void fluctuation came from outside the hall. More than 10 Imperial Emperors of World Wutong looked over and saw the space at the entrance of the hall crack open. Two figures walked over together, a man and a woman. The man had black hair and a purple robe. He wore a silver mask and his eyes were like torches. The woman wore a blood-colored robe and had an indifferent expression. She was flawlessly beautiful. Both of them exuded the aura of a ruler descending upon the world. The two of them stood side by side, giving off a feeling that they could go anywhere in the world. It was as if no one could stop them. Demon Emperor Shui Dai. When Realm Lord Wutong saw Dai Yu, he stood up with a solemn expression. Back then, this Demon Emperor Shui Dai had once gone to World Wutong and fought with the Imperial Emperor experts of the Divine Phoenix and Divine Phoenix races. Although he did not appear that day, he had a deep impression of this matter. Of course, what truly made his expression change was not what happened back then. It was the battle of the Grand Desolate World not long ago. In that battle, this Demon Emperor Shui Dai had displayed extremely powerful combat strength. Even against more than 100 Imperial Emperor experts, she could still kill a few of them. What was even more terrifying was that it was rumored that there was an Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi by the Blood Butterfly Demon Emperor's side. By relying on his own strength, he'd annihilated over 100 Imperial monarchs to the point of being utterly defeated. There were rumors that the Araki Takashi was the Tao companion of the Blood Butterfly Demon Emperor. Now that they saw the Blood Butterfly Demon Emperor walking over hand in hand with a man, the dozen or so Imperial Emperor experts in the hall immediately guessed the identity of Wu Dao's original body. Ah! Realm Lord Wutong quickly calmed down and laughed loudly. He cupped his hands and said, "I believe this must be the legendary Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi. Congratulations on becoming Tao companions." Dai Yu did not say anything. She only nodded coldly as a greeting. If not for his congratulations, Dai Yu might not have bothered with him. "So it's Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi. I've heard a lot about you. Blood Butterfly Demon Emperor, how have you been?" The surrounding Imperial Emperor experts of Realm Wutong stood up one after another. These two were not ordinary people. In the current 3,000 realms, any Imperial Emperor expert would not dare to be negligent and be rude when they saw these two. Wu Dao's original body nodded slightly and did not exchange pleasantries. He went straight to the point and said, "Gather the Imperial Emperors on your side. I have something to discuss." The smile on Realm Lord Wutong's face froze. This Araki Takashi said it nicely. What did he mean by something to discuss? However, his tone did not sound like he was discussing with anyone at all. His tone sounded more like he was ordering him to do something. As the realm lord of a super big realm, someone actually spoke to him like this. The other Imperial Emperor experts of Realm Wutong also frowned. They looked at each other and remained silent. Realm Lord Wutong smiled and said, "I wonder what it is that is worth the two of you coming? Call them over first." Wu Dao's original body said indifferently, ignoring Realm Lord Wutong's question. A cold light flashed across Realm Lord Wutong's eyes. After a long silence, he took a deep breath and nodded. "All right, I want to hear what it is that is worth gathering so many people." Realm Lord Wutong took out a message talisman and tore it apart. It turned into a few streams of light and disappeared into the void. Wu Dao's original body and Dai Yu came to the side of the hall. They found two seats and sat down. Their expressions were calm as if they were in their own cave abode. Chapter 3082. Not long after, more than 100 Imperial Emperors received the news and arrived at Zhongyu City. If it were anyone else, it would have been fine. However, Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi and Demon Empress Shui Dai had come together. Even the realm lord of a super-large world did not dare to underestimate them. Moreover, most of the Imperial Emperors had never seen Araki Takashi before. This was a good opportunity to get to know him. Rumor has it that Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi and Demon Empress Shue Dai have become Dao companions. It seems like it's true. This is the first time the two of them have appeared in the 3,000 realms. Moreover, it's at the time of the final battle between the dragons and the phoenixes. I wonder what their intentions are. How many people did they bring? It's said that there's only the two of them. There's no army following them. In that case, there shouldn't be any big movements. They might just be trying to befriend us. The imperial emperors had just arrived at Zhongyu City and were already secretly discussing. Among them, there were some imperial emperors who were calm as if they were not surprised by the appearance of Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi and Demon Empress Shue Dai. In the hall, more than 100 imperial emperors arrived one after another. This hall was grand and tall. It could accommodate tens of thousands of people. However, at this moment, only imperial emperors were qualified to enter this hall. When the Grotto Heaven Kings heard that the legendary Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi and Demon Empress Shue Dai had arrived, they were all discussing excitedly. They were already considered experts of the upper realm. With a lifespan of 1,000,000 years, they could dominate a region in any realm and be conferred the title of king. However, here, they could only obediently guard outside the hall. The kings looked at the hall with a hint of envy and reverence in their eyes. This was a gathering of imperial emperors. The people in this hall were all people who stood at the peak of the upper realm. Some of them could cause a huge commotion in the 3,000 realms with just a stomp of their feet. In the hall, every imperial emperor expert who arrived greeted Wu Dao's true body and Dai Yu. Wu Dao's true body and Dai Yu did not stand up. They only nodded indifferently. This scene naturally attracted the dissatisfaction of many imperial emperors. Although the celestial emperors did not say anything, they were secretly criticizing him. Actually, it was not Wu Dao's original body and Dai Yu's arrogance. Instead, they could not tell which of these sovereign emperors was controlled by Yan Sheng's curse and lost their minds. If they couldn't come to an agreement in a while, it would be hard to avoid a big fight. There was no need to get too close to them right now. Fellow Taoist Araki Takashi, fellow Taoist Shue Dai, you two sure are extravagant. Realm Lord Wutong smiled and said in a strange tone. Other than the Wutong realm, which was a super realm, the Lord of the Blood realm, which was also a super realm, did not show any dissatisfaction. He remained expressionless from beginning to end. As for the imperial emperors from the higher realms and middle realms, they wouldn't say anything. May I know why fellow Taoist Araki Takashi has summoned all of us here? Realm Lord Wutong asked in a low voice. Wu Dao's true body didn't beat around the bush and said bluntly, "This battle between dragons and phoenixes can stop now." The hall suddenly fell into a short period of silence. With just one sentence, the atmosphere in the hall became solemn. Many imperial emperors exchanged glances with each other, and they couldn't believe their ears. For example, the Lord of the Blood realm and the Lord of the Poison realm were rather calm. Heh. After a long while, Realm Lord Wutong chuckled. His expression turned cold as he said, "So, fellow Taoist Araki Takashi wants to stand up for the dragons. However, I would like to ask something. The battle between dragons and phoenixes has lasted for thousands of years and swept through hundreds of realms. Countless living beings have died. Do you think you can stop it just because you say so?" "That's right." Wu Dao's true body nodded and said, "If I say stop, then it has to stop." "Why?" Realm Lord Wutong stood up and his aura surged. He stared at Wu Dao's true body and shouted, "Because I'm Araki Takashi." Wu Dao's true body said this sentence calmly, but it had an unquestionable power. Realm Lord Wutong's aura was actually suppressed by Wu Dao's true body's words and instantly reversed. Realm Lord Wutong clenched his fists tightly. His heart was filled with anger and indignation, but he was speechless for a moment. "Realm Lord, please calm down." At this moment, an imperial emperor of Wutong realm stood out and said in a deep voice, "In my opinion, it's not impossible to stop the war." Just as Realm Lord said, too many living beings have died in the battle between the dragons and the phoenixes over the years. Although the dragons have been forced to retreat and are trapped on an island, our realms have also suffered losses. Realm Lord Wutong's expression changed. He had never thought that Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi's seemingly absurd and domineering proposal to stop the war would be approved by the Imperial Emperor of Wutong Realm. Feng Xiang, what did you say? Realm Lord Wutong's face was cold as he berated. Realm Lord. Another peak Imperial Emperor of Wutong Realm stood out. His beard and hair were white, and he looked quite old. It seemed that his seniority in Wutong Realm was not low. Uncle Huang Yu, tell me. Realm Lord Wutong said. The old man from Wutong Realm said slowly, Feng Xiang's words are not without reason. Realm Lord Wutong was stunned. This old man from Wutong Realm had always been in the pro-war faction when the Dragon World and Wutong Realm clashed. He advocated an eye for an eye and blood for blood. He was the oldest, but his hot-bloodedness had not disappeared. Why did Uncle Huang Yu suddenly change so much that he actually agreed to stop the war? Emperor Huang Yu said in a deep voice, the dragons are trapped on an island and their vitality is greatly damaged. They are no longer the same as before. It's not impossible to let them live. With the current state of the dragons, who knows how many years it will take for them to rise again. There's no need for us to kill them all. More importantly, after the war stops, we can let our clansmen recuperate and deal with the huge changes that might happen next. That's the most important thing. Imperial Lord Huang Yu's words were reasonable and well-founded. But to Realm Lord Wutong, it was simply ridiculous. Up until now, there were even Imperial Emperors from Wutong Realm who had fallen in the battle between the dragons and the phoenixes. There was no room for negotiation between the two sides. Emperor Huang Yu actually changed his previous state and suggested to let the dragons live? Emperor Araki Takashi was indeed powerful and could even be said to be terrifying. But just because of a sentence from Emperor Araki Takashi, the battle between the dragons and the phoenixes stopped? This was too childish. Uncle Huang Yu was a peak Imperial Emperor. Could it be that he was really afraid of Emperor Araki Takashi? Realm Lord Wutong asked in disbelief, Uncle Huang Yu, let me ask you. If Wutong Realm falls into such a state, will the dragons let us live? Realm Lord, I also agree with Uncle Huang Yu's opinion. Without waiting for Emperor Huang Yu to speak, another Imperial Emperor from Wutong Realm stood out. I don't agree. There were also other Imperial Emperors from Wutong Realm who stood out to object. Wu Dao's original body had only said a few words. There was no conflict with Wutong Realm, but Wutong Realm had already quarreled with each other and did not give in to each other. Wu Dao's original body raised his eyebrows slightly and was a little surprised. But with a thought, he understood the reason and sneered secretly. Chapter 3083. Realm Lord Wutong looked at the many Imperial Emperors arguing under his command with a livid face. He couldn't hold it in any longer and shouted, Enough! Others had only said a few words, but his own people had already caused such a ruckus. Moreover, it was in front of others. Realm Lord Wutong said in a deep voice, the battle between the dragons and the phoenixes is not only related to our Wutong realm. This time, hundreds of realms have come here, and there are more than 100 Imperial Emperors in this hall. This battle can't be stopped just because you want to. You have to ask for the opinions of the other fellow Taoists. As he spoke, Realm Lord Wutong looked at the Lord of the Blood World. Other than the Wutong realm, the Blood World was also a super world. Moreover, it had always been the main battle faction, so its opinion was extremely important. Under everyone's gaze, the Lord of the Blood World slowly stood up and said in a low voice, In my opinion, it's not impossible to stop the battle. The Lord of the Blood World's reaction was beyond the expectations of many Imperial Emperors. Realm Lord Wutong also looked at him in disbelief. The Imperial Emperors of the Wutong realm have already said the reason for stopping the battle. The Lord of the Blood World looked at Wu Dao's original body and nodded slightly. Moreover, this time, Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi and Demon Empress Xue Dai came together. For the sake of the two fellow Taoists, my Blood World is willing to take a step back. As another super world, the Blood World agreed to stop the battle. This had a significant impact on the direction of the battle between the dragons and the phoenixes. I agree too. The Lord of the Poison World said sinisterly and then closed his mouth. I agree to stop the battle. The Lord of the Tomb Realm said in a deep voice. Previously, in the Torch Dragon domain, the Grotto Heaven Kings of the Tomb Realms suffered heavy losses. We can take this opportunity to recuperate. The Realm Lords of the Bone World, Black Crow World, Scorpio World, Lifeless World, and other worlds also stood out and expressed their agreement to stop the battle. The Imperial Emperors who wanted to continue the battle fell silent when they saw this scene. Even the absolute main force of the battle between the dragons and the phoenixes had chosen to withdraw. It was useless for them to persist. Only a few people mustered the courage to stand out and object. Realm Lord Wutong's expression was ugly. He had never expected that Emperor Araki Takashi's declaration of a ceasefire would lead to such a situation. Imperial monarch Araki Takashi was indeed powerful, but was he capable of causing all the imperial monarchs present to retreat just by relying on the Taoist name of Araki Takashi? Realm Lord Wutong was extremely disappointed. When the conflict between Dragon World and Wutong World first broke out, he urged both sides to communicate as much as possible or use other methods to resolve the conflict. However, many pro-war factions had emerged within the clan, and their voices were getting louder and louder. He could only compromise. In the end, it was inevitable that it would evolve into a prolonged battle between dragons and phoenixes that engulfed hundreds of worlds. From the start of the war until now, too many people from Wutong Realm had fallen. Even if it was to avenge these people, he did not want to stop. However, the clansmen beside him wanted to stop the battle. The Realm Master of Wutong Realm knew that if these realms retreated one after another and only Wutong Realm remained, they might not be able to take down Dragon Island. A centipede dies but never falls down. Moreover, Emperor Araki Takashi and the Blood Butterfly Demonic Empress were obviously on the dragon's side. Realm Lord Wutong laughed, and his voice became louder and louder. It was filled with anger and unwillingness, and it echoed in the hall. It's fine if you want to stop the battle, but I only have one question for you. Realm Lord Wutong looked around and said loudly, for thousands of years, hundreds of worlds, countless clansmen, and countless heroic spirits have fallen in the battle between dragons and phoenixes. Who will pay for this blood debt? In the hall, more than 100 imperial emperors were silent, as if they were stunned by Realm Lord Wutong's words. Realm Lord Wutong turned his head to look at Wu Dao's original body. He had completely thrown away his fear of Araki Takashi and said loudly, "It's fine if you want to stop the battle, but can you give me an explanation for such a deep blood feud, Araki Takashi?" Many people saw Realm Lord Wutong speaking to Wu Dao's original body like this, and they secretly broke out in cold sweat for him. Unexpectedly, Wu Dao's original body was not angry. Instead, he nodded and said calmly, "Someone indeed needs to pay for this blood debt." Realm Lord Wutong asked coldly, "The Lord of the Witch World?" Wu Dao's original body said. "The Lord of the Witch World?" Realm Lord Wutong frowned. What did this have to do with the Lord of the Witch World? In the battle between dragons and phoenixes, the Witch World did not participate at all. In the hall, some of the imperial emperors had calm expressions. Some were like Realm Lord Wutong, puzzled and puzzled. All these years, the reason why the Dragon World has been fighting everywhere and wantonly killing foreign races is because the Lord of the Dragon World has been infected with the curse of Yensheng, lost his mind, and was controlled by others. Wu Dao's original body briefly explained what happened on Dragon Island. Many imperial emperors found it hard to believe. There was a lot of discussion in the hall. Of course, there were still many imperial emperors who were suspicious. These are just your one-sided words. Realm Lord Wutong said in a deep voice, "Who knows if this is a reason you made up to offend the dragons? Even if what you said is true, it's because the dragons were careless and underestimated their enemy that they were manipulated. In the battle between the dragons and the phoenixes, the dragons still have an unshirkable responsibility. Do you think that the battle between the dragons and the phoenixes was only started by the dragons?" Wu Dao's original body asked in return. "What do you mean?" Realm Lord Wutong frowned. He could vaguely hear that Wu Dao's original body seemed to be implying something. "I believe in fellow Taoist Araki Takashi. The Lord of the Blood World suddenly said, with his reputation and prestige, there's no need for him to make up such nonsense. Following that, many imperial emperors also stood out and expressed their belief in Wu Dao's original body. Even on the side of the Wutong realm, there were a few imperial emperors who believed in Wu Dao's original body. If it's according to what fellow Taoist Araki Takashi said, there's even less need for this battle to continue. The Lord of the Blood World said in a deep voice, "The Blood World is the first to withdraw. I'll gather my clansmen now and return to the Blood World." As he spoke, the Lord of the Blood World stood up and cupped his hands towards the surroundings. Then he nodded at Wu Dao's original body and said, "Everyone, farewell. My Poison World will also withdraw." The Lord of the Poison World followed closely behind. In the main hall, a portion of the imperial emperors stood up one after another and prepared to leave. Looking at this scene, Realm Lord Wutong felt that it was extremely absurd. More than 100 imperial emperors were gathered here. The army of hundreds of realms had become a pile of loose sand with just a few words from Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi. The battle between the dragons and the phoenixes that had lasted for thousands of years had ended like this. Realm Lord Wutong slowly sat back down and leaned against his seat. He looked at the imperial emperors who stood up to bid farewell. He felt a sense of powerlessness in his heart and his interest waned. "Who allowed you to leave?" At this moment, an indifferent voice suddenly sounded in the main hall. All the noise and clamor instantly disappeared. Many imperial emperors looked in the direction of the voice and saw Wu Dao's original body sitting there. Their expressions were uncertain. Realm Lord Wutong suddenly straightened his body and his heart trembled. What was Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi trying to do? He had already achieved his goal. Was he going to cause more trouble? End of this chapter. Chapter 3084. Fellow Taoist Araki Takashi, what can I do for you? The Lord of the Blood World asked with a frown. I'll treat everyone to a cup of tea. Wu Dao waved his sleeves and placed more than 100 teacups in the air in the blink of an eye. They were filled with steaming hot tea. He said calmly, the tea leaves are ordinary, but the spring water used to make the tea is extremely rare. It's difficult to find it in the 3,000 worlds. Many imperial monarchs found this rather baffling. So what if the spring water was rare and precious? They were all imperial emperors. What kind of good tea had they not drunk? There's no need for tea. An imperial emperor smiled and said, I've never drunk tea in my life. Thank you for your kindness, Araki Takashi. With that, the imperial emperor was about to walk out of the hall. Suddenly, Wu Dao's finger knocked on the table beside him, and a sharp, ear-piercing sound was heard. The imperial emperor's body trembled, and the pain in his chest was unbearable. He could only stop. If you want to leave, you can. Drink this cup of tea first, Wu Dao said indifferently. Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi, what do you mean by this? Emperor Huang Yu from Wutong Realm shouted. Another imperial emperor from Wutong Realm also said in a deep voice, Araki Takashi, aren't you being too overbearing? Seeing Araki Takashi being so overbearing, Realm Lord Wutong was furious. Just as he was about to stand up, he saw Emperor Huang Yu and the Imperial Emperor beside him stand up. Realm Lord Wutong frowned and did not say anything. It was a little strange. Emperor Huang Yu and the others agreed to Araki Takashi's proposal to stop the battle immediately. They were afraid of Araki Takashi's combat strength. At this moment, these people stood up again and confronted Araki Takashi. Their tones were unfriendly. The contrast between the performance of Emperor Huang Yu and the others was too great. In addition, Araki Takashi had just mentioned the Yensheng curse, so he couldn't help but be suspicious. Could it be that the people of Wutong Realm were also cursed? This thought flashed through his mind, and Realm Lord Wutong was shocked. However, when he recalled the cause, development, and process of the war between the dragons and the phoenixes for thousands of years, there seemed to be an invisible force pushing it. Realm Lord Wutong decided to wait and see. Araki Takashi. Of the poison. Who knows what? He is. He. You. Be. The Flower Realm's nether calamity poison should be your doing. Everyone else in the hall can leave as long as they drink this cup of tea. As for you, you can't leave today. The Poison World Lord's expression was gloomy as he stared at Wu Dao. He placed his hand on his storage bag and did not say a word. Realm Lord Wutong asked in a deep voice, Imperial Lord Araki Takashi, what's the use of this tea? This cup of tea only has one use, and that is to wash away the curse in your body. Wu Dao said, if you're not cursed, there won't be any reaction after drinking this cup of tea. As Imperial Lords, we will never listen to your orders. Another Imperial Lord stepped forward and said loudly, if you ask us to drink it, we will drink it. If word of this gets out, where will our face go? I invited you to drink tea. If you don't drink it, then I'm sorry. Wu Dao slowly stood up. The expressions of all the imperial monarchs changed when they heard this. As the martial Dao main body stood up, the imperial monarchs in the hall suddenly felt an enormous pressure that was suffocating. Everyone was clearly standing in the main hall, but as the martial Dao body stood up, everyone had an illusion in their hearts. It was as if Araki Takashi was above everyone and looking down at them. What was Imperial Lord Araki Takashi doing? Could it be that he wanted to fight with more than 100 Imperial Lords in this hall? What are you waiting for? The Poison World Lord suddenly shouted, as Imperial Lords, how can we allow him to humiliate us like this? Before he finished speaking, the Poison World Lord held up a world. Poison gas filled the air and was about to gush out. As soon as this world appeared, before the martial Dao body could react, the expressions of all the imperial monarchs at the side changed drastically, and they hurriedly moved aside. They propped up a world to protect themselves as they were deeply afraid that they would be contaminated by the toxic poison within. Wu Dao's eyes narrowed as he saw it clearly. There were more than 10,000 types of poison in the Poison World Lord's world, and one of them clearly suppressed the other poison gases. It was the nether calamity poison. It's really you. Wu Dao's main body activated his essence soul and used his divine will. Rumble. Following a series of shocking blasts, giant, ancient doors descended from the sky around the palace with overwhelming auras. Translator, Zephizi Editor. Dioquin. Some of the doors were surrounded by demonic qi. Some of the doors were burning with flames. Some of the doors were filled with ghostly shadows. Some of the doors were bone-piercing cold. 10 doors descended and sealed all the exits of the hall. 10 doors of hell. At the same time, a universe enveloped down and merged with the hall. However, there were no flames under this universe. Worried that it would cause too much of a commotion, Wu Dao's main body only released half of the martial universe. Together with the 10 doors of hell, he trapped more than 100 imperial lords here. Everyone, follow me and kill our way out. The Lord of the Blood World raised his arm and shouted, Araki Takashi wants to kill all of us. What are you all worried about? Are you all going to wait for death? The Lord of the Tomb Realm also encouraged loudly. Upon hearing that, many imperial lords no longer hesitated. They held up a world and prepared to charge out of this universe. Right at that moment, the sound of a river gushing suddenly came from one of the 10 doors. Before everyone could react, a large expanse of surging torrents surged out from the door, and they covered the heavens and the earth as they poured into the world. In the blink of an eye, the entire hall was drowned by the torrent and filled with mist. More than 100 imperial lords held up their own worlds to resist the impact of the torrent. Many imperial emperors sensed the power emitted by the torrent, and they revealed a look of fear and panic. This door was the Hell Door. The torrent that surged out from inside was the Hell Water Spring. Since these imperial lords were unwilling to drink tea, he could only guide the Hell Water Spring into the hall and give them a quick death. The Hell Water Spring could wash away the curse. Although the cursed imperial lords had a world protecting them and could temporarily not be invaded by the Hell Water Spring, they would still feel deep fear. Once the world shattered, they would be completely exposed to the Hell Water Spring. Chapter 3085. Outside Zhongyu's palace, many Grotto Heaven kings were discussing with interest. Something's wrong inside. It seems like there's an argument? From the looks of it, it seems like the Lord of the Blood World and the others want to leave, but Imperial Lord Araki Takashi won't let them? Before anyone could react, a universe enveloped them and 10 huge doors appeared, completely sealing the palace in front of them. The auras emitted by these 10 doors were too terrifying. There were some doors that made one's bloodline and primordial spirit feel a burning pain just by looking at them. Some of the doors emitted a huge suction force, as if they wanted to devour them. Retreat. Many Grotto Heaven kings summoned their respective Grotto Heavens but could not withstand it. Their expressions changed drastically as they retreated and fled into the distance, looking at the palace with lingering fear. In the palace, the Hellwater Spring surged over and drowned everyone in the hall. The Imperial Emperors could only rely on their worlds to temporarily resist the impact of the Hellwater Spring. Wu Dao's true body walked side by side with Daiyu. Wherever they passed, the Hellwater Spring would make way and open a path. Arriving beside Imperial Lord Huang Yu, Wu Dao's true body circulated his blood qi and punched. Boom! This punch landed on Imperial Lord Huang Yu's perfected world and exploded with a loud bang. The immense force even caused the surrounding Hellwater Spring to disperse. Kakaka! Immediately after, Imperial Lord Huang Yu heard a terrifying sound. Cracks appeared on the world that he had condensed, and they quickly spread out, covering the entire world. Imperial Lord Huang Yu's eyes widened and his face turned pale. When the other Imperial Emperors saw this scene, they were also shocked and felt their scalps tingle. Imperial Lord Araki Takashi's casual punch shattered a peak Imperial Lord's perfected world with just his physical body and bloodline combat power. Only Daiyu knew that Wu Dao's true body was even stronger than during the Battle of the Grand Desolate World. The two true bodies reunited in the Dragon World and exchanged a few items. Wu Dao's true body handed the Soul Lamp and the Evil Emperor's Jade Pendant to Qinglian's true body. To Wu Dao's true body, the Soul Lamp was no longer of any use to him. The fire of the Soul Lamp had already fused into his martial soul and became a part of it. As for the Jade Pendant, Wu Dao's true body had yet to discover any use for it. It seemed to be able to help him resist illusions. However, with his current cultivation realm, there were no illusions that could affect him. After pondering for a long time, Wu Dao's true body, the Jade Pendant used true body. As for the martial Dao true body, it devoured the immortal Dao fire, fiend Dao fire, Buddhist Dao fire, and vermilion bird heavenly fire from the green lotus true body and merged them into the universe. The vermilion bird heavenly flame merged with the dragon phoenix flame and transformed into the holy vermilion bird flame. In other words, there were the netherworld ghost fire, red lotus karmic fire, tribulation fire, sacred vermilion flame, hell fire, immortal Dao fire, fiend Dao fire, Buddhist Dao fire and martial soul fire in the martial cultivation universe. A total of 9 flames. With the support of the 9 flames, the origin martial Grotto Heaven devoured and refined the world fragments obtained from the battle of the Grand Desolate World. Now it had transformed into a world. The Dao body of Wu Dao's true body was the origin martial Grotto Heaven. The transformation of the origin martial Grotto Heaven also meant that the body and bloodline of Wu Dao's true body had been reborn. His combat strength had increased exponentially. Emperor Huang Yu's world shattered and collapsed. The hell spring surged and engulfed her instantly. Emperor Huang Yu let out a tragic cry as her entire body trembled. Green smoke rose from the top of her head and her eyes had completely transformed into a strange green color. Curse! Realm Lord Wu Tong's eyes narrowed when he saw this scene and exclaimed. Emperor Huang Yu's curse was extremely severe. It was even worse than the dragon's Emperor's scorching Sunday. Under the wash of the hell spring, she let out a tragic cry and died. Boom! 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 Wu Dao's true body walked on the waves. With a few casual punches, he shattered the surrounding Imperial Emperor's world and allowed the hell spring to pour in. Among these Imperial Emperors, some were like Emperor Huang Yu. The power of the Yen Sheng curse was exposed. Some were washed by the hell spring but were not harmed. Some imperial emperors also understood what was going on. Emperor Araki Takeshi's goal was still to target those who were cursed. If they were not cursed, they would not be harmed even if they were drowned by the surrounding spring water. Wu Dao's true body walked past these people and did not even look at them. After understanding this matter, some imperial emperors with a clear conscience decided to withdraw a world and let the hell spring wash over them. It was better to take the initiative than to let Emperor Araki Takeshi shatter their world with a single punch. Seeing Wu Dao's true body walking over, Realm Lord Wu Tong was shocked. He hurriedly withdrew a world and allowed the hell spring to wash over them. Other than being drenched, he did not feel any discomfort. Just as Wu Dao's true body had thought, most of the imperial emperors who had agreed to stop the battle were infected with the Yensheng curse. As for those like Realm Lord Wu Tong, who seemed to be reckless and dared to confront him, they were not controlled by the Witch Realm Lord. What surprised Wu Dao's true body was that the few people he paid attention to, such as the Blood Realm Lord, the Poison Realm Lord, the Tomb Realm Lord, the Bone Realm Lord, and the others, were not cursed. The Poison Realm Lord took the initiative to disperse a world and allowed the hell spring to wash over them to show his innocence. Seeing this, Wu Dao's true body smiled faintly and said, "I told you, you can't leave today. Even if you aren't cursed, you will still have a debt of blood from the battle between the dragons and the phoenixes." As he spoke, Wu Dao's true body had already walked towards the Poison Realm Lord. Die! Seeing this, the Poison Realm Lord no longer had any extravagant hopes. His gaze was cold as he condensed the Nether Calamity world again and suppressed it towards Wu Dao's true body. Boom! Wu Dao's true body still raised his hand and punched, shattering this world as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. "Araki Takeshi, if you want to kill me, you will have to die too." Seeing this, the Poison Realm Lord was not shocked but delighted instead as he laughed sinisterly. His Nether Calamity world was filled with lethal poison. Every world fragment was enough to poison an imperial emperor to death. Now that the Nether Calamity world was shattered, all the lethal poison poured down and enveloped Wu Dao's true body. The Poison Realm Lord knew very well. With Araki Takeshi's combat strength, it was very difficult for other poisons to pose any threat to him. However, even imperial emperors could not resist the Nether Calamity poison. In order to refine the Nether Calamity poison, one needed a medicinal herb that did not exist in the 3,000 worlds. In the world, only one person could refine it. As long as Araki Takeshi was infected with the Nether Calamity poison, his combat strength would be greatly reduced. At that time, the remaining imperial emperors in the hall would have a chance to kill him if they joined forces. Wu Dao's true body sneered slightly. With his terrifying blood vitality, even the Nether Calamity poison was unable to get close to him. Even if the Nether Calamity poison entered his body, the 9 supreme flames could still incinerate any lethal poison in the world. Not to mention that he could draw out the hell spring water at any time through the secluded prison door in the gates of hell and cleanse all the lethal poisons in the world. End of this chapter. Chapter 3086. Wu Dao's true body was filled with vitality. He broke through the layers of poison miasma and grabbed the Poison World Lord's neck. With a flip of his hand, he threw him onto the door of hell. The door of hell spewed out layers of mist that enveloped the Poison World Lord. Ah! The Poison World Lord let out a shrill scream. His body began to rot under the influence of the hell spring water and disintegrated bit by bit. The Lord of the Poison World's physical body and bloodline contained deadly poison. His body was a body of poison. The process of the hell spring water cleansing the poison was equivalent to decomposing and corroding the Poison World Lord bit by bit. Under countless gazes, the Poison World Lord was swallowed by the door of hell and disappeared. Under the attack of Wu Dao's true body and the cleansing of the hell spring water, the Yensheng puppets in the hall were exposed one after another. Araki Takeshi! At this moment, more than 30 imperial emperors in the hall suddenly looked at Wu Dao's true body at the same time. Their eyes were dark and suffused with a green light. Their eyes were filled with hatred. "I've retreated again and again. Don't go too far." More than 40 imperial emperors spoke at the same time. Their tones and tones changed, and they became extremely unfamiliar voices. In fact, the Lord of the Sorcerer World had already sensed that he had suddenly lost control of the puppets in the dragon world. However, he did not expect that Wu Dao's true body did not intend to stop just like that. When he controlled the Yansheng puppets and arrived in this hall, he vaguely realized that something was wrong. Therefore, after Wu Dao's true body suggested a ceasefire, these puppet imperial emperors who had lost their minds immediately agreed to it to avoid conflict with Wu Dao's true body. However, Wu Dao's true body's decisiveness in killing exceeded the Lord of the Sorcerer World's expectations. Wu Dao's true body had no intention of letting his Yansheng puppets leave at all. When they saw this scene, the remaining imperial emperors' expressions changed in shock. Among the more than 100 imperial emperors, 30% of them were infected with the Yansheng curse and were controlled by the Lord of the Sorcerer World, completely losing their minds. Just on the side of Wutong realm, there were 6 imperial emperors who were infected with the curse. At this moment, Realm Lord Wutong finally understood why Emperor Araki Takashi wanted to put the blood debt of the battle between the dragons and the phoenixes on the sorcerer tribe. Whether it was the dragon world, the Wutong world, or even the many worlds that were forced into it, all the living beings of the 10,000 races were victims. Hundreds of realms and countless living beings died mysteriously under the manipulation of the masters of the sorcerer realm and the poison realm. Facing the threat of the master of the sorcerer world, Wu Dao's main body acted as if he didn't hear anything. He continued to walk forward and shattered the worlds of the Yansheng puppets. As long as the 30-odd sovereign emperors did not suffer from the curse for too long, they would at least be able to survive after being washed away by the Hellwater Spring. The many secular world kings gathered in Zhongyu City, looking at the palace in the middle of the city from afar as they discussed softly. What is Emperor Araki Takashi trying to do? Could it be that he still wants to suppress the 100 over imperial emperors inside? After all, Emperor Araki Takashi is not a great monarch yet. I don't think he has such means. Not long after, the 10 terrifying doors that were emitting endless pressure slowly faded away. Everything in the palace was revealed in front of everyone once again. The palace was in a mess and it was in chaos. No one knew what the imperial emperors inside had experienced. Although they had just changed their clothes, their faces were all pale and their hearts were still palpitating. Some of the imperial emperors were even more frightened. After leaving the palace, they did not say a word and directly tore open the void and left in a hurry. Among the imperial emperors in the palace, only Araki Takashi and Xue Dai seemed to be calm. The kings were all confused by the scene. Naturally, they did not know that in just a short while, the group of imperial emperors in the palace seemed to have taken a trip around the gates of hell. As imperial emperors, they were already standing at the peak of the upper world. But in that palace, their lives were in the hands of a single thought from that person. It seems like some imperial emperors are missing? Some kings had already noticed that something was wrong. Where is the Poison Realm Lord? Has Imperial Emperor Huang Yu also disappeared? It seems like there are more than 10 Imperial Emperors less than before. Could it be? At this moment, an Imperial Emperor walked over and called a few of his subordinates over. He said in a low voice, "Stop talking. The Poison Realm Lord and the others have already died." Who killed them? Who else could it be? Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi. As soon as these words came out, they instantly spread out in the crowd, causing an uproar. The kings of the Grotto Heavens were secretly shocked. In front of more than 100 imperial emperors, Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi had killed more than 10 imperial emperors, including the Poison Realm Lord. Isn't he too powerful? From the looks of it, it seemed like many imperial emperors had suffered a great loss in the hands of Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi. Could it be this matter is over just like that? What else can we do? The battle between the dragon and the phoenix has stopped. Inform everyone to evacuate as soon as possible. Stop the battle? Seeing that the Dragon Island is about to be destroyed and the final battle is right in front of us, who allowed the battle to stop? Another commotion broke out in the crowd. Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi. All the complaints and noises disappeared in an instant. It was as if these 4 words were emitting an invisible deterrent force that made people feel suffocated. After Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi intervened in the war that had lasted for thousands of years and involved hundreds of realms, less than an hour later, the war was announced to stop. What was even more terrifying was that hundreds of realms of various sizes, including the Wutong realm and the Blood realm, did not have the slightest objection. Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi, we can't thank you enough. We don't know how to repay you. In the future, if Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi has any orders, we will definitely go through fire and water and die 1,000 deaths. A few imperial emperors from the Wutong realm who had been cursed but had managed to preserve their lives bowed deeply to Wu Dao's original body. If not for Wu Dao's original body, who knew how long they would have continued to do evil and harm many of their clansmen? Fellow Araki Takashi, Realm Lord Wutong walked over with a hesitant expression and said carefully, "My tone just now was not good and offended you. I hope you can forgive me." Realm Lord Wutong recalled how he had shouted at the person in front of him just now and felt a lingering fear in his heart. As an imperial emperor, he had the dignity of an imperial emperor and could not be offended. Moreover, Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi was clearly helping the Wutong realm, but he did not know what was good for him. Under such circumstances, even if this person killed him, no one could say anything. Wu Dao's original body turned his head and looked over. The eyes under the silver mask were as deep as an abyss. He calmly looked at Realm Lord Wutong and suddenly raised his palm and slapped over. "It's over." Realm Lord Wutong closed his eyes and his heart instantly sank to the bottom. In front of this person, he did not even have the strength to resist. Moreover, this person had just saved the Wutong realm and was the benefactor of the Wutong realm. No matter what, he could not fight back. "If I die, so be it." Realm Lord Wutong sighed in his heart. But that terrifying palm gently landed on his shoulder. Realm Lord Wutong's entire body trembled, but he did not feel any pain. He subconsciously opened his eyes and looked over. He saw that person patting his shoulder and nodding slightly. "You're quite bold." Realm Lord Wutong was stunned and his emotions were complicated. Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi had been decisive and domineering in the main hall just now, but at this moment he did not find trouble with him. If it was another bloodthirsty person, he would have died countless times. And Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi's words just now, other than making him feel that he had survived a disaster, it also made him feel flattered. It was as if being able to receive the praise of Imperial Emperor Araki Takashi was the greatest honor in his life. End of this chapter. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.